Yo, creeping in the dark, life nocturnal, dark and dark, both paths arboreal to terrestrial. Sticky toes gripping forest students that explore. Listen close, Gecko podcast, that's knowledge galore. Reptile talk, host Anthony and Jason. Trade secrets flow, no time wasted. From tropics to town, it's sight raining. With every chat, reptile game changing. Escaping heat waves, tan under rays, desert sand echoes, sun blazing days.
All right, welcome back, everybody.
Welcome.
Love that energy. So today we got Mr. Jon Asher on. John, why don't you go ahead and kind of go over your hurt origin story with us?
Oh, okay, sure. So I've been into reptiles my entire life. First word was frog, so reptiles and amphibians. First word was frog. So it's been a lifelong passion for me. I don't know why. I just always liked them. Something always appealed to me about reptiles and amphibians and nature in general, but I've been a big reptile guy since I was, very, very little. I can't even tell you how long time. I'm 22, so as long as that. And I've done a lot of stuff with reptiles throughout my life. Like when I was a kid, I would always have the reptile birthday parties where they would come and bring animals to your party. And, I live near underground reptiles, so it was always fun.
Oh, yeah.
I live in Florida, which is the capital for all things reptile, pretty much. Catching anoles, catching black racers, catching iguanas, and, all kinds of things like that. So it goes way back for me.
Awesome.
Nice.
So how did you start this endeavor? How did you get into the Anoles? What made you start this whole little path now?
Oh, okay. So it must have been, it's over 10 years ago. I saw I think it was a female small woodeye in the store over at what's called Cold-Blooded Kingdom now, but it used to be the Jungle, and then it was Ben Siegel Reptiles before that. And they had one in the cage, and I just thought it was very interesting, and it was cool. And, I was young, so I saw that, and then I didn't think about them that much. And then I was, a couple years back, I'm thinking to myself, I wanted to get into some projects, and I've always really liked anoles. Obviously, like I was saying, I kind of grew up around them. And I thought to myself, oh, I remember that cool lizard I saw way back when, small wood eye. That was a cool one. So and that's kind of what brought me back into anoles. And I got some small wood eye early on, really liked them, and just kind of got lucky and got a bunch of other stuff and expanded. And they really do well here. So it's a good thing for me to have here.
Yeah, I was just checking out your page before and doing some research, refreshing on the species in general, and I was blown away with how many species actually live in Florida now. I mean, I suppose they're not native there, but there was something like the guy was showing on the video, like 11 species of different types of anoles that have set up shop down in Florida.
Yeah, I think now there's only 8 that are established, and then there was another 3 that were previously established. So we have brown anoles, Anoles sagrii, your native Carolina green anole, Carolinensis, and then we have the bark anoles, Disticus, Hispaniolan green anole, which was Chlorocyanus and was recently reassigned to something else. There's a whole paper about it. Hispaniola large-headed anole, Cymodes, obviously Equestris is 6. That's 6, and then who am I missing? Disticus, Versatilis, so I guess I might be for totally blanking on one, but I guess there's 6 established, and then we used to have the Jamaican giant, Anoles scarma, and Anoles stringulatus at the St. Vincent bush anole, and I think there was one other that used to be established anymore. So yeah, there's a bunch of anoles down here, all kinds of different.
So they do well then, huh?
Yeah, really well, really well. All of them, pretty much any Caribbean anole here is going to thrive. And generalist.
Nice. All right. Hey, Ant, go ahead and keep on doing talking real quick. I need to
How do you feel about that? How do you feel from someone that keeps them, in captivity, and I guess studies and researches the hobby? How do you feel about the wild populations down there with them being labeled invasive, or how do you feel about the whole topic?
Well, I don't mind it personally. I think brown anoles at this point are, if you're going to call a feral hog native, you might as well call a brown anole native. They've been here since the 1870s, maybe even longer than that. They're all over the state. They're widespread. Their environmental impact is, they say that they outcompete the green anoles, which to some extent is probably true. But if you think about it, green anoles, the lineage for green anoles originates in Cuba, and brown anoles are from Cuba. And in Cuba, the green anoles naturally compete with brown anoles. So to some extent, the Carolinensis here, the green anoles, are able to kind of just reconform to their original niche of living higher up in the trees and coexist with the brown anoles. So I'm pretty cool with the brown anoles. Crescent anoles are kind of brutal a little bit because they outcompete the brown anoles. Which, if you outcompete a brown anole, you got to be pretty gnarly. But they don't really spread at the same rate the brown anoles do. It seems like they're pretty localized in Miami. I like them. I obviously love seeing equestris here.
Mm,
I'll never complain about it. But I think labeling them as invasive it's a strong statement, because
agree.
we don't understand the impact of night anoles on the ecosystem. We really don't have a great understanding of them because uh, I don't think there's enough work done on
I
actually
agree.
studying what's going on with, because night anole first of all, night anole is a big anole predator. So anywhere that brown anoles and night anoles exist, they're eating a lot of brown anoles if they can. you know,
Absolutely.
I do personally believe that their impact on the ecosystem is minimal
Hmm.
here, and also considering the fact that those anoles, all of the non-native anoles here, really only live around developed or previously developed areas. If you go
Hmm.
in Everglades and Big Cypress, all you're going to see are green anoles. Really, in my experience, at least, that can be wrong. In my experience, pretty much all of those non-native species only live around humans. So
That's
I
awesome.
like them here, and I don't think that they're doing much in the environment.
Very
Actually, I
cool.
think even the animals might even help some of our native animals by being a food source.
Imagine they keep the
For sure.
mosquitoes,
Yeah.
at bay as much as you can down there. Mosquitoes and gnats and all types of small stuff.
They're not doing a very good job.
So I was talking to somebody one time, right? And it was an interesting conversation because somebody had brought up the topic of invasive species and anoles being invasive, and he had brought up the idea that how do you call them invasive when we're not exactly sure that it was humans that introduced them here. They could have come over on drifting piles of palm fronds and stuff from Cuba. They could have come here whether humans existed or not existed in theory. These animals get around and have naturally spread out in the Caribbean through natural events anyways, hurricanes, tsunamis, blah. So it's one of those weird things where I guess green iguanas. I don't even know that we can say that you can really blame humans for green iguanas or say that they wouldn't ever come here. I mean, if you look at alligators, for example, alligators are it's a known fact that they're spreading traveling north, right? Like they're traveling north every year. The planet gets a little warmer, and alligators found a little more north of Florida. Why wouldn't it have happened naturally? I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, dinosaurs covered the continent. They didn't start in one spot. It's I just don't, I'm not a fan of the kill all invasive camp. I mean, if they're living and they set up shop and they're fitting in, I mean, leave them alone. You're invasive too, right? Like, damn. I mean, human beings are. Leave the things alone.
Yeah, that it's an interesting topic. I do agree with you. I think uh, there are certain things that should be labeled as invasive, and certain things that should keep the non-native label. As far as
Yes.
a natural introduction of anoles goes, I know that there is some study that links sagrii to cargo, Anolis sagrii, the
So,
Cuban brown anole, to cargo transports. And you also have to keep in mind that the brown anole is also native to the Bahamas, and it's native to Bimini, which is actually about 50 miles off the coast of Palm Beach. So they say there's multiple introductions from multiple populations and
hmm.
whatever. But they totally, in the span of many years into the future, they totally could have ended up here because the green anoles did.
Hmm.
And sagrii is a, I call it sagrii, but brown anole is a better name, I guess. Brown anole is a master interoceanic traveler and a master of
Yes.
survival. Master of
Yes.
survival. Yeah, very
Jason,
very good for it.
Jason, we watched a study. There was a report. Those guys, I'm sure you've seen it, but these guys, a biologist and this girl, did a study on one of these species of anoles in the Caribbean, and they were showing how fast they actually adapted to living in like a urban civilization, I guess. Like they showed how fast the toes grew over like a generation. They just showed how the species of anole adapted to, human influence, in comparison to a time frame, I guess. Like it was super interesting how fast they were able to adapt to a new environment. Like literally the animal
Yeah.
changed
Literally, they got bigger,
to fit
faster,
in.
stronger.
Yeah,
Have you
I
seen
think that
it? Do you?
was yeah, that was Jonathan Lassos, I'm pretty sure, and one
Okay.
of his PhD students. He's like
Yeah.
he's the big Anole guru in the science world. And I know that there was that one study, and I forget. You're right. It was a
It
woman,
was in
and
Puerto Rico.
yeah, it was about anoles adapting to urban environments. And then
Hmm.
there was
Yeah.
another study that they did where they introduced brown anoles on like tiny little islands with little vegetation, like very low shrubby vegetation, and they would notice that they would adapt certain. I forget exactly what they would how they would adapt, but they would adapt to the islands like with little vegetation over 2 or 3 generations, and one trait would be selected for, and you could see that trait being selected for over like only 3 or 4 generations, which is huge and crazy for evolution.
I think it's
And
amazing.
that's why anoles are such an important study
Yeah.
subject for in terms of studying evolution, studying adaptive radiation, because they have a short generation time and they can adapt very quickly.
Make a
So
great test subject.
back to back to why I love anoles. That's another thing is I love science. I really
Me
am
too.
interested in evolution, and I love the topic of adaptive radiation, and it's the Caribbean anoles specifically are a fascinating study subject. Or not study,
Oh, yeah.
fascinating topic in fascinating one of the best.
They are.
Yeah. So you currently keeping everything outside, or do you got like a certain ratio that you keep outside to inside?
So I pretty much all of the adults live outside and they get natural sun. They don't have any lighting on them or anything. They just live
Yeah.
outside. They get sun. This time of year it's a lot more shady, less direct sun.
Yeah.
I wish it was more sun this time of year and less sun in the summer. I work with what I'm given. And then
Right. Yeah.
I have all of the juveniles and then some small species kind of in it. I call it indoor outdoor. It's a lanai in a screened in patio. So they're
Oh, okay.
outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're under UVB and heat
Okay.
and UVA, stuff like that. So
And what are the behaviors between the ones that are getting that real sun to the ones that are getting the UVB?
it's to be honest, it's very similar.
Okay.
Because I'm keeping them outside, they all kind of are exposed to very similar environmental conditions.
Okay.
And even though the ones kept under UV are, they don't get direct sunlight. For the most part, the anoles are indirect baskers. They will open bask 100% in the times of the year when it's cool. But for the most part, they're either doing like a cryptic basking where they stick a leg or a tail or part of their body out
Okay.
for a little sun, or in the summer they don't bask at all pretty much, or
Mm.
only in the very early morning. So I would say they act very similar. The behaviors are identical. The colors and whatever in the animals is identical. In my experience, it just seems like a big part of getting them to thrive is just keeping them outside in Florida. Period. Because it's very humid.
Absolutely.
The natural seasonal changes. We're not far
Absolutely.
from Cuba. We're not far from the mountains. So I
Absolutely.
would say it's the same.
Are you using screen enclosures? You using the Repta Breezes? Yeah.
I am a big backer of Rected Breezes. I love them. They're great. They're multifunctional. You can use them for all kinds of different things. You can do all kinds of different things with them. They're made out of aluminum, which is nice because I live next to the ocean, so I'm constantly
Mhm.
getting salty sea breeze. So any
Nice.
steel would really good. I love Rected Breezes.
Yeah, I got a big old 4x2x2 myself. I had an iguana in it. Now I'm looking for something else to keep in that thing. I take it outside in the summertime and put my bearded dragons in and let them hang out and just put all types of stuff outside. I mean, they're the perfect. They're perfect. They are, like you said, freaking powder coated aluminum. They're awesome.
Yeah, they're great. You need some anoles maybe.
I
Right.
listen. I'm 40. I'm 41. I just turned 41 years old. One of from people in my era, from the 80s that started keeping reptiles in the 80s. You're not going to meet many people that didn't have one. They were our first go-to reptile in a pet store, you had options of green iguanas, your green anoles, maybe leopard geckos. I mean, that's what it was. They were the first pet your parent would buy you. You know, you were getting an anole or maybe a tokay gecko, or it's funny because all these things are coming back into popularity now that were in the '80s. So it's super
Oh,
cool to see. I
everything
mean,
cycles through, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
and it's funny that you mentioned that because I know this is a little off topic, but that kind of the fact that Anola is everyone's first pet, and that's something that I run into a lot. Is people have a hard time understanding that not everything is a green Anola and not everything
mhm.
is a brown Anola. So that's a stigma
Yep,
that I work really hard to kind of make people
yep.
understand. Like we're there's 400 and I know there's 65 species of Anola in Cuba alone, 41 in
Wow,
DR. I
I
think
did not
11
know
in
that.
Puerto Rico, 7 in Jamaica, and hundreds in Central and South America and in the Lesser Antilles.
Wow,
Yeah,
I
my
did not
numbers might
know
be a
that.
little off. Yeah, there's over 400, I think over 450 species of anole. So, people
Really?
think anole and they immediately think green anole, brown anole. They
Oh
might
yeah.
think
Yeah.
crested anole, but they don't realize that the diversity is huge. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Anolis is the largest tetrapod genus, at least maybe the largest terrestrial genus, Anolis.
That's awesome. That's
Maybe.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some debate with that genus if something should be reclassified into their
Yeah.
own subgenuses. But right now,
Mhm.
the agreed upon phylogeny is it's an anole, it's Anolis.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a
All right.
favorite species of the 450 said species?
A few, a few.
Yeah.
I mean, so well, before we get into that, are you familiar with how the Caribbean anole species are kind of classified into an ecomorph? It's like a certain like morphotype of, so pretty much, I'll explain this really quick, but this
Please.
ties into what you asked me. Uh, so we were talking about anoles being a great example of adaptive radiation, and some really how the Caribbean species all have a really interesting evolutionary history. So I'll do my best to explain this. So
Please,
pretty
yeah.
much, when you look at the 4 big islands in the Caribbean, so that's Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, which is DR and Haiti, and Puerto Rico, you see a lot of anoles that look similar. Same body type, same color, same niche-ish. So the assumption way back when was like, okay, this anole is green and lives this high up in the trees. It's probably related to the one island over that does the same thing, right? That would be the immediate assumption. But the thing that's fascinating about anoles is instead of all of the different ones that do the same thing being related, they did this thing called, just like a good example of this is Darwin's finches. They did adaptive radiation. It's like it's niche partitioning where instead of all of the anoles that are doing the same thing on each island being related, every anole per island is more closely related to each other than they are to the island over. So,
Hmm.
say, I don't know how familiar you are with species, but so if you look at like a green anole, like your Cuban green anole, and then you look
Mhm.
at the Puerto Rican green anole, or the Dominican Republic green anole that we have here, Chlorocynus. If you look at them next to each other, you might not be able to tell the difference. Like they're very, very similar looking species,
Yeah.
but the green anole on Cuba is more closely related to a night anole than it is to that very similar looking green species on a different island. So basically, all of the anoles on a per island basis in the 4 big islands of the Caribbean radiated out from a few common ancestors on that island rather than them all evolving to like the same anoles just drifting and evolving on different islands. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
It
They
does.
evolved
It does. I watched
adaptively.
Clint's Reptiles. He just went on. He did this. Clint, follow. Do you watch Clint's Reptiles videos? He just
Yeah,
did the
yeah,
whole phylogeny of lizards in general, and he goes on to it. But there's a name for it, and I don't know exactly what it is. But animals in different locations can ultimately evolve to become the same type of thing or similar types of things from same animals. I forgot the name that he used, the scientific
convergent,
term.
convergent evolution. That's what it is. It's
There you
convergent
go.
evolution.
Okay.
Sorry, I probably should
Yep.
have said that. Yeah. So Knowles in the 4 big islands are they they did they did adaptive radiation from one common ancestor, and adaptive radiation is basically it's niche partitioning. It's where one or two or a small group of common ancestors adapts to occupy many different niches, and the reason it's so fascinating is because it's convergent evolution on a small scale. So it's convergent evolution between each island. So like on Puerto, I think like a great example is Cuba. Cuba has the most anole species of all the Caribbean islands. You have anoles like a brown anole that stay near the bottom of the trees, and they call it a. This is what I was getting into the ecomorphs thing. They call it a trunk ground because it kind of occupies the trunk and the ground,
Mhm.
you know. And then you go one up, and Cuba actually only has one. There's only two true bark species in the whole Caribbean, and Cuba has one of them. But the most commonly known bark species is the bark Anoledisticus. Those are like, one up. They kind of occupy the wide trees. They conform to the bark. And then you go one up from that, and you have something called like a trunk crown, which is what uh, like Anoles grami, the blue anole from Jamaica, the
Mhm.
turquoise anole. That's kind of what
Yep.
that's considered. In Cuba, one that you would call a trunk crown is like Alisoni, like the blue-headed green
Okay.
anole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you have twig anoles, which are like they have very
Oh,
like
dude.
proportionally short limbs, and they walk on very thin branches and live in the canopy usually. Anoles valenciani, which is one of my favorite anoles in the whole world, is a twig anole, but you have all kinds of different twig anoles, and then you have the crown giant, which is my reptile name, and also that's basically the ecomorph of the giant anoles of the giant green anoles. So like you have Westeros, Garmon, Recorder, Cuvier, and the extinct Roosevelt in that niche. And then you have like the grass bush also. That's one that I'm missing because I didn't keep any of them, but that's one that occupies like shrubs and grasses. And then you have, there's some like random offshoot ones like Cameliolis, like the Cuban false chameleons. They call that twig giant.
Oh, really?
To me, it's more of a crown giant. That is to me at least. But they do definitely walk on twigs more than Equestris does. But yeah, that's sorry. I don't know if that made that really confusing.
No, not at all,
No,
man.
no.
I love your passion, man. Your
Yeah, I
passion
love
is
hearing this stuff,
glowing,
man.
bro. It's glowing.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man. Very cool.
yeah. So we're here like we're kind of talking about kind of like the differences between like the Jamaicans and the Cubans, right? Because I know you said that like you like the Jamaican twigs and then also a lot of those Cuban ones. So can you kind of like talk about the differences between each of their habitats, right? And like how would people go about setting them up, um, like if they wanted to get like a Jamaican twig or if they wanted to get like a small wood eye.
Yeah, sure, I got you. Really quick, though, I do want to get back to you, Anthony, to went on a really big tangent. My absolute favorite anole species, top three for me, definitely like Anoles valenciana, the Jamaican twig anole. Like I have such a soft spot for them, and I absolutely love them. Uh, Small wood eye, just because like that's my OG, and probably Guamahaya because I just have a big history with them, and they're a really exciting project for me. But I'll move
Awesome.
past. So
Awesome.
you were asking me so setting up the differences.
Just the
Well,
differences in husbandries between some of your
Yeah,
favorite
yeah.
species.
so we can start with the Cuban giant species. So like the Cuban giants are like smallwood eye, Baracoe, Luteoglaris, Equestris, uh, and then Noblei, which is like kind of an obscure one that we don't really have much of in the hobby, and then Pygma Equestris, which is like a really obscure one that we don't have in the hobby. And there's a ton of subspecies of each. So for setting them up, they're pretty similar. Like it's pretty fluid. Like for all of the species we have in the hobby, like we have the blue beauties, we have Luteoglaris, smallwood eye, Barracuda, normal Equestris from Florida. It's pretty fluid. I think that minimum size enclosure for a pair, and this is like absolute minimum. I mean, you could probably get away with housing a pair of adult size animals in a 3 by 18 by 18, but it's not ideal. That's not ideal. A 3 by 3 by 18, like those big wide exoterras, are more ideal for
Okay,
that.
yeah, yeah.
If you're keeping in glass, I keep in screens, and I have a certain way of keeping that I can explain after. But as far as just general set of things, uh, it's a crown giant, so you just kind of gotta conform to what a crown giant likes, and a crown giant likes thick branches. Crown giant likes so every enclosure that those giant holes in, I always try to add like one like trunk size branch, like a thick branch. They really love oak wood. That's like something I've noticed even in the wild equesters here is you see a lot of equesters on oak trees. But they'll use any kind of wood. I use ficus wood and gumbo limbo wood. And I try to use multiple different kinds of wood per enclosure. They like some
Nice.
thick branches. They like to sit head down vertically on branches, and they like different size branches. So that's just like very basic.
Hmm.
You want to have many different size branches, and you want to have a lot of different horizontal and vertical perches because they will really use all of it. I've noticed that they like leaf surfaces. They'll walk on leaf surfaces. The crown giant species have enlarged toe pads, obviously for helping them kind of navigate through the canopy. So big leaf surfaces. The more airflow you can do, the better. You can totally get away with keeping them in glass. People are successful keeping them in glass. My screen is not
Hmm.
everybody lives in Florida.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, UVA, they do like light. They live in the top of the trees, even if they're sitting under the leaves, there's a lot of light up there.
Hmm.
So I use like shop lights, Archipelago shop lights. They're like $20. You can get them at Lowe's or Tractor Supply. You can order them online. They really work well. They're hardy. They're water resistant. They're good. Uh, I think you, I use UV, obviously strips, no compacts, please. I use 10.0 strips. I think with 10.0 strips, if you're going to use them, you just got to really make sure that you're not going to let the animals get too close to them because I've
Hmm.
had an experience in the past with this thing called photokeratotic conjunctivitis, where the anoles, they'll get too close to the lights and it'll almost like kind of scorches their corneas and you'll see them like closing their eyes a lot. It's a reversible condition. But so I learned that through experience. If you only get 10.0, you can't have them getting too close to it. But obviously, that's just a general thing that is known.
Hmm.
At least a 5.0. I use a 5.0 for babies and 10.0 for bigger stuff, as long as they have a decent size enclosure. I'm just thinking if I'm missing anything. That's like caging wise for the Cuban giant stuff. Jamaican stuff is pretty similar. So like, a Jamaican crown giant like Garmani is pretty similar, like size requirement wise, purchase wise. They like it. The Jamaican stuff. They all like it. Any Caribbean and all except for Montaigne stuff likes it. But Garmani likes it. Like they'll be happy in 95.
Okay.
They like it. I've been to Jamaica and it's freaking shit.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say because I know it has to be couple. It has to be different temperature. Like Cuba, I mean, I'm sure Cuba's probably like 80s, 90s, but I know Jamaica.
Cuba's
No,
hot as shit, dude. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
really?
Cuba's
they're all pretty
Are we
pretty
talking
close to the
like?
equator.
Yeah,
yeah.
what are we talking like temps wise?
All of the climates on all of those four big Caribbean islands are very similar at sea level. Obviously, there's different elevations on every island, so the higher up you go, the cooler it gets.
Yeah.
Cuba summertime sea level, same as it is in
Oh,
hotter than
really?
hotter than Miami.
Okay.
So hot. Jamaica, same thing. A really hot in these coastal areas, hot. But if you go in Jamaica, you go up
Humid
in the blue.
too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
during the day in the summer, it's going to be below 50% just because the sun is just so strong. That night,
Okay.
humid. But it's just at the same time in Jamaica, you can go up in the Blue Mountains and get down into in the 60s, the 50s. Cuba, you can go to
Really?
Sierra Maestra, the Guam, Sea and 60s, 50s. I've been up in a pretty decently high place in East Cuba, and even the middle of the summer, it's like 60s there at night.
Okay.
So
Really?
Nice.
Yeah,
this is
makes
in
sense.
this is in Dominican Republic, Duarte, over 10,000 feet, where it freezes over actually sometimes, like not like fully like
Shit.
iced out, but it'll freeze over for mornings sometimes, like real cold. I don't think there's any anoles up
Interesting.
there. But yeah, no, Jamaica, to get back to it, very similar to keeping the Cuban species. In my experience, though, with Garmani, they can be very hyper. The males, especially, are very hyper animals. Actually, that's the one species of anole that I think might be better in a glass cage because I've had bad experiences with the males just beating the crap out of their faces on the screen. Even
Okay.
though these are I literally have hatched these things out and they hatch like small. They hatch small, and I've raised them from babies to adults. They're tame animals that'll tongue feed tame. I don't handle them, but they're tame animals that'll tongue feed and they'll sit out and look at me and then they just get riled up one day. They hit their face once, and then they just don't stop doing it. And I've had a problem with that. So now but yeah, they do well in glass. Everyone I know that keeps them in glass, they stay perfect. So that's for the crown giant stuff. I have kept the Dominican Republic crown giants too, but I don't even really talk about them because they're very shy. They didn't like my keeping. Well, I don't know if it was that or if they were just very, very shy.
I
Yeah, it's
got
They
two
probably just very
questions for
shy.
you, John. Your lights, one, are you keeping your strips right on the screen or are you suspending them? And then also, have you had any issues with their nails getting stuck in the screens at all?
That's a great question. So yes, I do keep the lights right up against the screen because the way that I kind of keep them on those metal shelving units. You know what I'm talking about? Those
Baker
black.
racks?
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly what
Plug
you had
things right
behind
there.
you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I keep them on those so the lights are right on top of them. Very minimal on the nails getting stuck. But something I have had is where they'll scratch at the screen. If you know, I'll observe them scratching at the screen, and they can wear their nails down or kind of like misshape their nails. But really,
Mm,
not much with their nails getting stuck in the screens. They're pretty agile and good at not doing that.
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Would you get a question in the chat? They're asking about some invasives. So I doubt it, but I don't know. But are there any beauty anoles invasive in Florida? Has anybody
No,
noticed it?
no Anoles sequestris Portior here.
Okay.
Which one's that? That's not the blue Nightingales?
That's a
The
blue
I was just
nose.
Anoles
watching a guy on YouTube caught one in Florida.
Portior.
I
No,
guess it
it's
had a big blue head on it. It's a big. He's got his mouth gaping open. He ran and caught it. I thought he called it a blue beauty or something.
sometimes people on the internet don't know what they're talking about. So I promise you,
Could very well be.
there's there is no Anolis equestris Portior blue beauties here. There are though. We do have night anoles here, like Central
Yeah.
Cuban night anole, general
That's
night
probably what it
anole.
was then, just a regular old Nightingale.
Probably a regular old night anole. And a lot of the time, people will confuse night anoles and blue beauties, and not really understand the difference. And blue beauty
I
is
don't. There's so
well,
many species. Every time I look at one, I'm like, that looks like that, and that looks like that. Ain't it the same thing? It must be a morph name or a something. I'm like, I
so
can't keep up with them all.
Blue beauty is just it's an insular subspecies of an animal. So there's a small archipelago of islands. Hey, it's not very small. It's actually pretty big. In central Cuba, and each of the islands, or not all of them, but a lot of the islands have their own unique subspecies of night anole. So the blue beauties are just a subspecies from a small island called Cayo Santa Maria, and they only come from that spot. I've actually been there.
Oh,
I've been there.
okay.
I've been there. I've seen a ton of them in the wild. They're very common there.
That's why they're expensive, right? Aren't they a fairly expensive? Get
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, fairly. They were very expensive when they first came into the hobby 3 or 4 years ago, and they're very
That's
prolific. I just
probably
found
when I saw.
a baby for mine today. I find them all
Oh yeah, I
Nice.
think I see Ron St. Pierre. Ron St. Pierre had them. I think somebody had them. I watched somebody a few years ago had them, and they were
Yeah, they came into the country from Czech Republic. I'm pretty sure they came to
really.
Randy Mopia first. Yeah, the Europeans, they get all the cool stuff first. But
Yeah.
they went
I
to
don't know
Randy
what
Mopia.
that is.
Ron bought the some of the founder group from Randy
Okay.
Mopia, and then kind of distributed them. Ron and another guy called named David Ld in Eclectic Reptiles. He also got some of that
Okay.
original founder group, and they
Okay.
distributed them. Oops, all over the place, and now they're relatively common. They're super cool though. They're cool. They're a good species. I have a soft spot for them because I've
Hmm.
seen them in the wild, and it's trippy to see them because they're just so bright and beautiful. I
I
love
bet.
them.
I can imagine.
I will
Some of
tell you
those.
that they're my least favorite of all the giant animals, but I still love them.
Why is that attitude?
I well, and mine are really cool. Actually, they'll eat out of your fingers and come up to the front of the cage, and they're obviously really beautiful. But Equestris, Nightingales, aka Equestris, they are very, you have Barracuda, small wood eye, much more placid. Like they're much more slow moving, not so quick to run and freak out. When you have an Equestris species like that, their Equestris is fast and they run and they keep you on your feet. The Equestris species do. Like, when I open the cages, like with the babies to feed the babies, and a blue beauty gets out, I'm like, oh no, you
Yeah,
know.
that got to suck doing it outside when once they get out, you're like, oh shit.
And they don't get no. The babies are in the screen patio, so they don't go
Okay.
far.
Yeah, I was
They
saying in the screen patty. I'd let a couple out.
the adults don't ever leave their cages. Actually, it's funny. My adults, you could leave their cages open forever, and I don't think they'd ever leave.
You know what?
They
That
love.
actually kind of happened to me this weekend.
Me too.
I left my Sycorae cage open since Friday, and then I didn't get back to my place until Sunday, like Sunday afternoon. Came in there, check on everybody. I'm like, oh shit. Looked in there, just chilling. I'm like, okay, you just didn't want to leave at all. They're like, you're comfortable. You're good.
Exactly. That's always a good sign.
Oh
Some
yeah.
of my anoles will take it one step further, and if you go in their cage, they'll actually attack you and tell you to
Get out.
get out.
Well, that's even better. Shit, I like that.
Yeah.
So since we're on the topic of this kind of how handleable are they? I've listened to some videos and watched some guys argue with each other about how they're unhandleable, and then someone will say, "Well, actually, I hold mine all the time." I mean, what do you suggest and recommend from with your experience for someone that's looking to get, a species of anoles, one better to handle than others? Are they just totally off limits? Are they? What's your stance on the topic of handling anoles?
Don't handle them.
Look but don't
Well,
touch.
okay. You said are some better than others.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100%. If you're getting a blue beauty, don't handle it. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to work out for you handling a blue beauty. They or any equestris for that matter. They don't want to be handled. Like I was saying, equestris is a much more reactive, much more hyper species than smallwood iron barracuda. Don't handle blue beauties. Don't handle equestris. If you're handling them and they're sitting still and being calm, it's because they're stressed. I promise. I've dealt with a lot of them. It's best to give that. Just like anyone who you talk to about interacting with reptiles will tell you, you can't be going and grabbing them and picking them up and stuff. You got to interact with them on their own time. If you tongue feed them and they walk on your hand, so be it. But as soon as they walk on your hand, if you take them out of the cage, they're still not going to like that.
Mm.
If you want to touch them, you got to bring them on you, let them come on your fingers, and just keep your hand still. Keep feeding them and let them go off. I don't recommend handling them. Uh, so I have Anoles barracoa, which is one from Eastern Cuba, one of the three from Eastern Cuba. So that one, uh, they're I have a male and a couple of his offspring girls, and they can be really quite handleable. Honestly, I'm not going to tell you they want to be handled. I'm not going to tell you
Mm.
they're a crested gecko because that's just an absurd comparison, and they're nothing even compare. Like you can't even compare them. Actually, I think a great comparison for giant anoles is tokays.
Okay.
Tokays. Think of a tokay. You can interact with it. You can have fun with it. You might have some that'll let you touch them, but
Hmm.
it's not something you're going to want to pull out all the time. But back to barracuda. So yeah, I have one adult male barracuda called Spots, and he's he's a really just a stunning, amazing animal. And he's a 2018 animal, and he is really kind of tame as can be. You can go in the cage and scoop him, and he'll hang out with you, and you can just I let him I take him out and I'll in the morning and I'll put him on the lawn chair and let him hit the sun, and he just sits there and he doesn't leave. And if you bring food to him, he'll run up to you, even out of the cage. That's how you know he's not stressed.
That's
He'll run
cool.
up to you and eat out of your fingers, and he's really calm. And I have some of his offspring too, females that are really calm, and they can be calm, but when I'm shipping animals to people, I always tell them, like, even if you're getting barracuda, like the tamest of all the night anoles barracuda, still don't handle them because, it's all about progress, and it's all about gaining trust. If you get an
Mm.
animal, any species pretty much, and you immediately go to handling it and bothering it, it's not going to like you ever. And anoles are smart. Giant anoles are
Mm.
smart. They
Mm.
look at you and you're like, oh, like you're thinking about this, aren't you? So yeah, don't pretty much, if you're asking me with the green ones, and pretty much all anoles, it's just
Mm.
don't handle them until you really get to know them very well, and then you can make your own decision if it's going to be a good idea. Or you can try it one time and see how it goes, because it's
Mm.
try, probably won't go well. There you go.
Nice. So is there any what was I gonna say? Is there any different kind of dietary differences with them? Being so they're so hot. Because I know some of those do take they'll take some of the crescent gecko diet. Well, I don't. Is that more of the montane species or is that all species in general?
Uh, so the giant anoles, like the Cuban ones, we're talking a lot about the Cuban giants. I'll talk a little bit about the Jamaican ones too, and like some of the smaller species. They
Yeah.
will totally take gecko diet as juveniles a lot. Like they love it.
Oh,
I
really?
feel like
Okay.
the bigger they get, the less motivated they become to
Mm.
eat gecko diet, and they kind of. I'm gonna have to go get a charger in a second, by the way. And they
All
kind
right.
of
Perfect.
start to come. They come to really like to eat insects and other anoles.
Oh shit.
Um, they do eat some fruit. I won't deny that, but
Mhm.
I don't feed mine fruit because I don't
Okay.
think that feeding them the fruit that you're getting at the grocery store is beneficial to
Mm.
them. It's
Okay.
and it's a personal thing. But I've been to Cuba and I live in Florida. I see equesters all the time. When they're eating fruits, they're eating palm berries, and Brazilian pepper berries, things that are very, very low
Okay.
meat to seed ratio. They're not eating bananas. They're
Mm.
not eating, watermelon or any of these very high in sugar, low in seeds fruits. So I fed them palm berries.
Makes sense.
They forage them, And also, I think another thing that people don't realize is the Anoles sequestris, like the Florida Cuban night anoles, they eat fruit a lot. They do. I'll admit it. But it's kind of just because, in my book, it's just kind of because they don't really have a choice. We don't have the kind of insect diversity here, anything like what Cuba has. I mean, Cuba has all kinds of bugs, you know. So
Yeah.
here they eat. I feel like they eat fruit almost out of desperation, and obviously they would rather eat an insect any day, or obviously another anole. That is their favorite. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So I've seen a lot of that actually.
yeah.
So what about so what kind of feeders are you doing? What kind of like how varied of a diet are you giving them? Do you do like snails or anything like that with them?
I just want to backtrack really quick. The small species, some of them, especially Jamaican twig anoles, totally do like to lick sap off of fruit. So like mango and pretty
Okay.
much, papaya, anything that produces sap.
Okay, nice.
Love gecko,
Mm.
and any pretty much any green anole-ish species. So like Alisonii, Porcatus, Carolinensis, Chlorocyanus. Those all will eat a lot of fruit stuff for sure, for sure,
Okay.
for sure.
Cool.
On to varying my diets. So I breed a lot of discoid roaches. Is that and the banded crickets are probably the staple diet in my collection. Uh, we haven't really talked at all about the Camelliolus, the Cuban false chameleon stuff, but I have a lot of them. That's like some of my main work is with the red throat ones and Guamahaya and Porcus and the less common ones. The common one is Barbados. I work a
Okay.
lot
Cool.
with the
That's
less
always.
common ones.
We'll get into it.
And
I
yeah,
when we were talking about handling them, those are the ones I kept thinking of. Is people I've seen people holding
Oh
those,
yeah,
but I didn't want to sound like an idiot. I'm like, I'm pretty damn sure Cuban false chameleon isn't a knoll, but like, let me not sound like a moron here because I don't know the scientific name, so I just
you're not
shut
an
up.
idiot. You're not an idiot at all. Those, I mean, I would say Barbados is more handleable, and like Guadalajara, which is relatively similar to Barbados, is definitely handleable. But if I have one female Barbados, but I don't really
Mm,
have any animals. Like I said, I just know they don't like it
yeah.
for the most part. But yeah, I collect snails for them. We actually have an invasive snail here that is from Cuba, the Cuban brown snail. It's like their
okay,
favorite food in the whole world, dude. They crunch those things in
okay.
bits. They
The
love them.
land snail?
Yeah,
Is it a
it's a
land
land,
snail?
it's a land
I use
snail.
snails too. That's curious. We got to talk later because I'm curious about that. I'm looking for some other snails too. I feed glass snails and milk snails to my chihuahuas, to my leachianas, to my new cal stuff. But I'm not sure that they're the right type of snails, you know. So that's conversation for another time. But that's cool to know that because I might.
They're nice. The Cuban brown snails are nice, and when they're young, they have a very soft shell, and they get pretty big. They get
Mhm.
about the size of like a $50 coin.
Yeah.
Uh, so, and I also collect. Some people might not like to hear this, but I'll say it because it's a big part of what I do. I do collect anoles to feed to them. I
Okay.
do in the
I mean,
summer
you
and
say
the
they eat
spring.
them, so it doesn't matter, right?
They more than eat
So
them.
that's
They
fine.
more than eat them.
Yeah,
They destroy them.
it's
But
part of their
they're
natural diet. So
it's part of their natural diet. And I don't do it because I like seeing things that I feel, I'm empathetic towards animals. I love brown animals. I love crested animals. But I really love to see my animals thrive. And I think that feeding a giant anole other anoles it's a very enriching experience for them because you'll see when you feed them other anoles, they have a certain hunting tactic for the smaller anoles that you don't see with insects and you don't see with anything else. They'll kind of like, they look at it and, with an insect, they see it, they'll creep up and then they'll just go. But when they see a small anole, they go and they see it, they just slowly turn their head. And once they're looking at it, they slowly open their mouth and then they just go like a freaking arrow, like beeline right on that thing. And they're good at hunting them. They're good at hunting them. I know I have a really good, amazing friend who's a biologist in Cuba, and he told me the young crown giants tend to eat a lot of other anoles. But I've seen anole, even the smaller species will eat anoles. I've seen Garmani, the Jamaican giant, eat anoles. Anoles valenciani, the Jamaican twig anole, does totally eat other anoles. Like I hatch out a lot of random little anoles that I'll just leave in the cage with them and let them hunt them. I think it's really enriching for them to eat other anoles. And also, what could possibly be a better nutritional like
Okay.
thing? What could have better nutritional value for them than something that is essentially everything they already need? you know.
So much more natural than feeding them pinkies or mice or, it's all day you're doing the right thing, man. Screw what anybody thinks. I mean, you're doing what's good for your animal. People have this whole misconception. So I feed my Leachianus geckos. That's what they're eating in the wild, dude. I'm not going to feed them a mouse. I'm not feeding them something that's natural. I'm going to feed them a whole food source. There's nothing that's going to beat a whole food source. And what are the options? I hate to say it, but in New Caledonia, probably crested gecko, right? Crested gecko is going
Yeah.
to crawl into the wrong tree hollow and get knocked off by a 300-pound lychee. It's going to happen,
Yeah,
you know?
no, yeah, for sure. And also on the subject of mice, I just want to mention, I don't, I really recommend against feeding giant anoles any kind of mice or rodents. Those kind of things can give them. If you feed them a lot of that stuff, it will cause gout
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
them, and it will give them some real issues. I've, I've almost never fed any rodents to my anoles either, except
Don't feed
two
me.
times. Two times I've had extra pinks where I'm just like, oh, I need to do something with them. They eat them, but I do not recommend feeding them that stuff. You're better off feeding them button quail if you're going to
I
feed
was
them.
just
Okay.
going to say quail. That's my
Nice.
next go-to. I don't feed rodents, man. It's either lizards or quails, man. It's just
Yeah,
not natural. I don't care what anyone tells me, what anyone thinks. I could care less about your opinions. If my animals are thriving, that's what matters to me. Not what Joe Schmo that's over here keeping. It's just not my concern, man. This is
Okay.
what they eat, and not to steal the mic or anything. But I was watching videos before this when a guy was, I don't know where he was, but he was filming an anole. This anole bolted out of the tree, was on the bottom of the tree. I don't know what species it was, a bigger anole, and came down and hammered this mourning gecko that was on the ground somewhere. Like literally on film, as he's just filming the gecko. Didn't even know it was going to happen. The thing just bolted and grabbed the mourning gecko. It was so natural that
Yeah.
it's like that's what they do, man. Like even that short video is a minute and 43-second video that I watched. I'm like, that's what those things do. That's what they do. That is what they do.
that's
You know?
definitely what
You
they
know?
do. And they're smart about it too. They're opportunistic with that.
Hmm.
I'm sure if they found a nest full of baby squirrels, they would eat them. But they're, they're, that's what they do. They eat anoles. And I would say their hunting success with anoles in the wild is actually probably pretty low. I don't know the hard thing for them to target. But I'll tell you, they definitely can. And the juvenile ones definitely eat a lot of other animals, 100%.
There seem to be a super intelligent species too, as far as anoles in general. I mean, you can look at certain animals and just not see much going on. And I'm not knocking anybody who keeps leopard geckos, but if I look at a leopard gecko, you see something there, but it's just like very two-dimensional, like, hey, feed me. You look at an anole almost gives you that vibe on like, what are you thinking? Like what are you thinking that I'm
Those are
thinking type of
smart.
stuff. It's there's something there, the movements, their actions, everything they do is calculated. Everything that they do. It's even to the adaptations, like we were talking about before. I mean, these things are just they are absolutely an incredible species of or genus of reptile, man.
That's why I hear people, again, I'm going to say it, I hear people comparing them to crested geckos, like, oh, the new crested gecko. I think to myself, I'm like, that is a freaking absurd,
Yeah.
ridiculous comparison. That's ridiculous.
Oh
Just
man.
As
insane
far as
comparison.
popularity, I can see it coming as far as in comparison is what the potential they have in the hobby. Crested geckos hold a big spot in the reptile community. Now, I can totally see with what's been happening even over the last 6-7 years with the Knolls. Some of the work you're doing, some of the work Harmon's doing, they can absolutely fill that sector of the hobby, if you will. Morphs are coming, things are coming. The species, there's twice as 5 times as many. There's 400 times as many species of anoles as there is crested geckos, right? Like it's you can cater to an individual's preferences with anoles more than you really can with a crested gecko. I mean, I can see them as far as keeping wise, intellect wise, no comparison.
Comparison.
But as far as popularity, I wouldn't doubt him for 1 second becoming the next it animal.
That'd be cool. I mean,
I certainly hope so. Shit, man. I,
I have like a staunch opinion on that. It's like, on one hand, I would love to see that. Obviously, like, I like seeing people enjoy keeping anoles.
Mm.
I love to spread the love. At the same time, keeping an anole is not even compared to a female crested gecko. They're a lot smarter. And they have a lot. I think personally they have a lot more needs, and you know, some people say, "Oh, they're beginner animals, beginner animals." You know, and they can be. You know, they can be beginner animals. But if you want to really keep them and see them thrive and be amazing, it's not a beginner thing. I don't think.
No, it's
Yeah.
the intellect. Smarter animals require more, regardless. They need more mental stimulation. They need more. Yeah, I mean, keeping a crested gecko, and I keep them myself. I have them, but they're very dumb animals, right? They're very they're very simple.
We're
They're
gonna
very
say
simple
simple.
minded animals.
They are
Two
simple
dimensional,
animals.
two dimensional is
Yes,
is a really good word for them.
yes.
They
In
don't
a
they don't
knoll,
look at you in that way. They don't look at you in that
no,
way like an old does or
no.
it's another one like an iguana does or you know
Or a
there's all
monitor. Yeah.
monitors.
Monitors,
Yeah.
monitors are another one. They're super. They're just not the same. And those animals do, in my opinion, like you were saying, they require more. That intelligence deserves more attention. You just you can't just. I don't want to say I wouldn't. I don't keep anoles right now. I wouldn't suggest them to just anybody. They're definitely not just like an animal you're going to keep in a shoebox tote like you would a crested gecko or a leopard gecko or a cave gecko. I mean, you have to want to keep the anole. You have to be involved in keeping of an anole. Or
Yeah,
else you're
and
just going to wind up with just a not. I can't imagine they'd be in great shape. Just if you mentally abused an intelligent animal, it's like keeping
stay here.
horses in a stall. A horse will start swaying if you keep them in a stall. You can't. You gotta give these things enrichment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure. And I've seen it firsthand. Like if you keep an old the wrong way long enough, they're just gonna kind of hate you forever. You
Uh,
know. So I side note on that. You know, when you have something like a monitor or like a tegu or anything that does a lot of chemo reception with the tongue with the Jacobson's organ,
mhm,
you're dealing with something. That is, it's a it's a different sense of their senses are different, so they
mhm,
intake information differently. So you can do things differently with an anole for the most part. Now they do some chemoreception stuff, like as far as like using taste and pheromones, they do some of it, but it's pretty much almost with the anoles like learning and life is entirely visual.
mhm,
Unlike a monitor, where like you could have a monitor with no eyes and it would probably do all
mhm.
right
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
something with strong chemo reception like that. A null, they learn through their eyes, they understand through their eyes. Everything is their eyes. Their communication is through their dewlaps and through movement, through
Yes.
dewlap patterns and through like displays of visual cues. So
Mhm.
when you're keeping a visual learning animal in an unstimulating environment, it really does scar them.
Yeah.
And I do believe that they learn and they hold on to things. They hold on
Mhm.
to things. Yeah, and I don't know. And also, I wanted to mention another side note. You know, Cuban, we didn't talk about it, but it's something that people ask me about all the time, so I want to say it on here. The Cuban giant anoles and Jamaican species, and pretty much not just giant anoles, like almost any small anole, any anole from the Greater Antilles, which is the four big islands, they will live over 15 years. Um,
Good to
even I
know.
know people, I've seen posts of people with the Cuban cliffonol. I saw one recently, 16 years old. I know there's a guy with a Jamaican
Nice.
twigganol in Europe, female, 14 years old. I talked to a guy who told me he had two male Anolis scarmani. They lived 18 years, both of them. I know people. I know that the record for a nitinol longevity-wise was 24 years. Pretty
That's
impressive.
awesome.
I personally
Yeah.
have animals that are close to 10 years old.
Really.
Um,
Nice.
so they live a long life. So it's a big Cresties live a long time too.
Yeah.
You're committing to something that's going to live a while.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
they're
Yeah.
very
Do they
intelligent
slow
animals.
down as they get older? Do they still produce for you? Do they still breed, or do they cut off at a certain age?
I have a female who's at least a 2000. She's at least a 2016. She might be older than that, to be honest. And I have another female who I know for a fact is a 2014. And they produce like crazy still. And that one female that, well, I can tell you a little story if you want. It's
Ah,
somewhat
yeah.
of
Stage is yours, brother.
yeah. So about it's coming up on I think it's a little over a year ago now. Uh, I had just been getting some of those red throat Cuban false chameleons. Like I had a lone male, and I was getting a few more, and I was messaging Philippe Dimastroli, I think his name. because
Got no error either myself.
he's the only other guy working with some of like the less common Cuban like false chameleon species, and so he told me he would have some eventually, and he would get me some red threats eventually. But then he told me that he had this one other species called, which is it's the Cuban false chameleon from the central mountains of Cuba, and it's I've seen them in the wild. They're freaking awesome. Personally, in my experience, I think they're the largest at all. I mean, they're huge. They're huge, and they hatch huge. And oh, I'm going ahead of myself. So Philip told me he had them, and he's a guy that's known to really just want to see species thrive and happy, and want to conserve a lot of awesome species for everyone to
Yeah,
enjoy. Like he says, like from females.
he's an
So
amazing dude.
he told me he's like, oh, I have these Guamahaya, I have a pair of them. I only got one offspring from them 4 or 5 years ago. They breed. I can't get them to lay fertile eggs. I don't know why they won't breed. The future's not looking good for them. So I was like, I've had a lot of good success with Anoles, and I've kind of built somewhat of a name for myself. So I asked him, I was like, would you consider sending them to me for me to give them a try outside here in Florida? He was like, absolutely, you know. So I took them on, and I had them for a few months, and they're a montane species, so they cool down in the winter, and I let them cool down, and it was amazing. They were in the 40s and still eating, in the 50s, really
Nice.
cool down. And they cooled down and they cooled down, and then in May I started getting eggs from them, and that's what I was going to say is they're really old. The female's like 9, 10 years old, maybe even older. Honestly, she's very old. She was the last one in the whole country, the last female. We couldn't find. There was a female,
Wow.
3 or 4 males, but she was the last female that I could find. There's a lot of people that aren't on online stuff,
Yeah.
but Philip couldn't find another one. I couldn't find another one. I have another friend who's pretty well connected who couldn't find another one, and so I ended up getting her to lay eggs, and I have a ton of offspring from them now.
That's a hell of an
So
accomplishment, kid.
Nice.
yeah, it was
All
a big
right.
accomplishment
Yeah.
for me for sure getting them back to. Yeah,
Congratulations.
she probably laid. I think she laid like 23 eggs, and
Wow.
yeah,
Oh,
her hatch in the beginning I was having like trouble hatching them, but after a while they just all started hatching. So I think I have 5 point. Well, I've hatched 7.4, and I hatched, and I had actually funny thing. I was having a hard time hatching females, like of course, and like
I
one
was gonna
female.
ask.
I keep hatching males. I hatched 6 males in a row, 5 males in a row, and then I finally hatched one female. I'm like, oh my gosh, yay! And then I hatched a few more 2 more males, and I hatched another female, and then I just didn't have any more females. So I was like, dude, screw this! I only have 2 females. I have like 7 males. And then 3 weeks ago, I found a baby in their cage, and it was a female. And then
That's
yesterday,
cool.
I found another baby in their cage, and it was a female. But yeah,
Do you
no,
nice.
think it's something to
that's
do
my.
with temperature?
They totally do genetic,
Oh yeah.
genetic determined sex determination, genetic sex determination. It's
Hmm.
like decided. It's like sex chromosomes. It's not
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
maternal or it's not maternal or something.
Yeah.
I thought that too at first. I'm like, this makes no sense. And I consulted a few people, and they made a good point why it's not. But yeah,
Hmm.
that was my little story. That was my recent big
That's
herpetoculture
awesome, dude.
herpetoculture thing. Is so yeah. Now I went from
Great
having
contribution.
that
That's
hopeful
amazing.
pair and being really not hopeful for them to I'm definitely going to produce a shitload of these things now. So I'm
Nice.
really happy
Oh
because
yeah.
dude, I mean, they're amazing, and they lay huge eggs, they hatch huge, they get huge, they're docile, they're beautiful. If you look at my page on Instagram, yeah, I have lots of pictures of them. They're beautiful and awesome. And I can tell you 2 more stories that are of similar fashion. So in
Please.
2021, I got I got Anoles barracoa. That's the one I was saying was tame, the green one from Eastern Cuba, the night anole. I got uh, a female from one of my friends. I was having a hard time sourcing a male. I sourced a male, and I bred a few of them, and then I lost the male. But I kind of found out later. Not later. I knew at the time they were very rare, and they were the last breeding group. Nobody has bred those since 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I was able to get together a group of animals from across the country, just people that had like random lone male, random lone animal, and now I've produced hundreds of them. So that's the same thing with barracoa. I was able to get like they were pretty much on the brink of done for in herpetoculture. I was like, nah, let's get you guys going. I got them all together and bred them. It's kind of a similar thing like what Ron St. Pierre did with the Ludio Galeris. There was a few
Mm.
animals left and he managed to get them pumping, and now there's quite a few. It's the same thing with me for Barracuda and the red dewlap false chameleon, which is kind of like a more, they call it, it's Anoles porcus, which is, it's an undescribed species, but it's similar to Anoles porcus, which is from eastern Cuba. And that was another one that was really doing poorly in the hobby. I had him, Philippe had him. One other really amazing, awesome keeper, Eric Russell from ZooMed. Shout out to him. One of the best guys I know. And he had a few females. And another thing is, another similar to the Philippe story is I had him a lone male, and Philippe has a group and he had a group, and he's a busy guy. He's always going around doing shows.
Mhm.
Uh-oh. I think he lost me. Uh-oh. You here?
It cut out now. I'm not hearing.
I'm
Okay, there you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, someone called me. And he entrusted me on a
Oh,
breeding loan with those, and I had big time success with them. Produced dozens of them, so they're pumping now. And yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
part of the hobby for me is about getting to share this stuff with other people and recover these species, because I think
Absolutely.
until pretty recently, a lot of these anoles were kind of slapped on.
Mm.
oh
What's
yeah.
up with CITES in these? Are they being imported at all? I mean,
So it's a I,
or are you
I,
literally saving them? Like, did you
I
save the hobby?
I'm literally saving it. I don't want to give myself too much credit, but no, I'm literally saving them because there's 425 species, 400 however many. It's either 425 or maybe 450. I don't remember the number, but it's a lot of species in that genus. And the whole genus, the only species listed on CITES are the false chameleons and the green Cuban giant anoles. And that,
Oh wow.
by the way, side note, that listing happened because of, and my, I'm not, this is not confirmed, but this is my guess, is that because Anolis equestris podior came into the hobby suddenly, Cuba saw that and they were like, we don't like that.
Hmm.
And then they CITES listed almost all of the giant anoles, except for smallwood eye and noble eye. They're noble eye. They're all CITES listed. And they're on CITES 3, which, it doesn't sound that hard. Like, oh, I'll just do a CITES 3 import. But then the thing with that is, so I don't know if you're familiar with how U.S. Fish and Wildlife will kind of just deny stuff. They have a habit of, so there's a few places where if you try to get animals, even if you have CITES docs and you have all the paperwork that's necessary to bring the animals in, U.S. Fish and Wildlife will basically be like, but fuck you. Uh, so, so
Damn.
Florida sounds like it'd be one of them.
Yeah, no, no,
Man.
no. I'm saying so. Like, I'm from what I understand, animals that come in with CITES from Australia, certain animals, especially like blue tongues, shinglebacks. Now, shinglebacks was recently they started denying them. Agurnia, those kind of species from Australia, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Even if you have CITES from Europe, they'll tell you, nah, anything from Brazil and Cuba. So any CITES listed Cuban wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife will be like,
Hmm.
So they're
Hmm.
real. They were
Interesting.
really in big trouble. Really in big trouble. And and could I probably figure out how to do CITES on them? Yeah, I know someone who's done CITES on them since the listing in 2019. I think it was either 2019 or 2021. The listing. I think it was 2019. They listed them. I know only one person. I think only one CITES anole shipment from Cuban species has come in since they were listed. It was from Ashley Dezan, Northern Lights. She imported 2 pairs of Anolis porcus. Phil Tremper had one of them. Friend Eric had the other one. Both of them. But yeah, so pretty much Cuban species on CITES is not going to happen. So save them. Yeah.
Damn.
Well, that's good then, man. That's a huge accomplishment, John. Like honestly, like I hope you give yourself credit for that. People seriously underestimate, the power and authority of Fish and Wildlife, right? Like they can literally, I mean, with CITES and everything, they can just end a species like that in the hobby. Like you will never ever see it again if they want that. And unless it's here and people like yourself working with it and keeping them going in the hobby, they're gone. You'll never see them again unless you hop on a plane and go see them in the wild. Like you're not going to see them again. Like
Yeah.
there's a huge responsibility that comes with keeping some of these species too. It's not just like keep cool animals in a box or let's just make babies. I mean, there is some serious responsibility that comes with keeping some of these rare species of animals, man. Like
Yeah.
I'm glad that people like yourself are doing it because I'll feel more comfortable. My kids may be able to have these someday. I mean, that's it's cool,
Yeah.
dude.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And like you said, even the species that may have once been commonly available in the past,
Mhm.
it goes on CITES one day. That's just the
Yep.
end. Like a Chinese big-headed
Yep.
turtle, like a Chinese crocodile lizards, the Shinisaurus, just,
Shinosauruses, yeah.
Shinisaurus in the 80s, you could get them, they were
Hmm.
cheap.
There were nothing.
Now it's like, good luck. Not good luck, but
Yep.
you're gonna spend a big buck. The U.S. Fish and
You
Wildlife
want
they can just be okay with something for a little bit, like Abronia is a great example. Abronia came into the country illegally from Mexico for
it?
many,
Yep.
many, many years. They were coming in illegally, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife was kind of just like,
Hmm.
one day, someone at U.S. Fish and Wildlife was like, "Wait a second, why are we not doing something about this?" And then they cracked down to shit. They busted all the people taking them out of Mexico. Anyone they traced all the sales. Anyone that had bought those, purchased those animals that were coming in illegally from Mexico. Even though for so many years they didn't give a shit. They just were like, "Okay, this is changing today. If you bought these animals that came in from Mexico, we're taking them." And they confiscated tons of Abronia. In my opinion, totally unjustly confiscated a ton of
Hmm.
Abronia. And, people were trying to do Abronia illegally. There were people doing Abronia illegally, but U.S. Fish and Wildlife just didn't care. And they didn't care about the illegal imports. So it was hard for the legit people to stay in business. And that was just kind of the
Yeah.
crumbling of it. And now, there's still some left, but a lot of those species you'll never see again. Abronia frost, I don't know if it was that one, but I know that used to come in and since.
Nah,
Huh.
Sorry to go off topic.
no, you're all good, man.
No, that's awesome, man. I love
Love
hearing
that
about this
passion,
stuff.
man.
The
Yeah,
people
for
that know
real.
more than I do, man. I actually wanted to do a whole episode on CITES and fish and wildlife. I would love for someone that knows everything about the process to come on and talk to us. We have guests here and there that all know little bits and pieces, but I'd love for someone to spill the beans about the whole process. You know what I'm saying? Like, how does an animal make it onto the list? How does it get regulated? What's the paperwork involved? I'm just super curious myself. I've never imported anything. I've never been through the process.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite familiar with it, but not familiar enough to talk
Yeah.
about it because I don't want to get things wrong. All I know
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
it's a treaty that was enacted in 1974. Most of the world's nations are a part of it, and the countries of origins for the species, they propose the species to be listed at a certain
Okay.
listing of CITES. CITES 1 is like critical things. CITES 2 is, they're all critical, but CITES 1 is like no export, no quotas. CITES 2
Yeah.
is some export quotas, need a lot of papers. CITES 3 is doable, basically. And they're proposed by the country of origin. Generally, if they're proposed, they are added to the list. And it's for one reason or another they add them. I don't know. I don't
Okay.
necessarily know what the protocol is for determining reasons, but you should definitely get someone on here to talk about that because
Yeah.
CITES and international export and understanding U.S. Fish and Wildlife and understanding CITES is
Hell yeah.
it's
I think
really
it'd be an
interesting.
interesting topic. Yeah.
My
Oh yeah,
opinion
definitely. I'll find somebody.
opinion on CITES is that it worked. It barely worked in 1974, and it
Mm,
doesn't work now. It basically just prevents people that really care and are doing a lot of work in the private sector of the captive hobby. That pretty
yeah.
much limits your bloodlines, makes it harder to do
Mm,
things, doesn't really do much good for wild animals anymore. They could reform it to make it good, but that's bureaucracy for you. So you know,
facts. Facts.
we work with what we can. Yeah, definitely a good topic.
Mm,
Right. So let's get back to these anoles. So let's talk about some courtship, right? So do you see different stuff about between them, like courtship? What all happens with that?
Uh, yeah, definitely. Certain species are, well, we'll start in the Cuban giant anoles. So the green species, the night anoles, are totally cool to be kept in pairs for their entire life. Sometimes trios work, sometimes they don't. But I have trios, I have pairs that have lived together for 5, 6 years, no problem. You will see a lot of courtship, so that they cool down in the winter. In the winter, they really do slow down, especially the species that are in more cool areas of the islands. They'll slow down in the winter, and then come March, come April, May, you'll start to see the males starting to get really territorial and throwing up their dewlap a lot. And they have different dewlap displays for different actions. So I can tell like if a male is courting or just like showing off or seeing another male, they do one head motion. If the male's like I'm gonna breed, they do it's a shorter head motion and then they will breed. And they'll court each other. Usually the males, honestly, in my experience with the green giant Cuban anoles, the Cuban crown giants, the males are very nice to the females almost all the time because luckily those species the males and females are about the same size. So yeah, courtship with them is just a lot of dewlapping, a lot of puffing up and walking around and strutting your stuff, and generally is very peaceful and nice. Jamaican giants have a huge amount of I guess what's the wording? They have very strong sexual dimorphism, the Jamaican giants, which you don't see in the Cuban species. So I think that you have the male Jamaican giants, they are giants. They really get 16, 18 inches long, big, spiky,
Wow.
big,
Damn.
spiky, green,
Didn't
awesome
know that either.
lizard. They get big, but the females only get about as big as a big adult male brown and all.
So,
Yeah, so they have
Big
huge,
difference for about 7 inches.
big difference. Huge. I think actually one of the biggest size dimorphism. I think there's one other one that I know has big size dimorphism is Anoles farius, but Garmani I think has the biggest size difference between their sexes of any anole, and maybe like one of the most of any like reptile. They have huge size dimorphism. No, not any reptile because the big snakes, but definitely of any lizard. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
and the males can definitely be rough. Of Garmani, the
Oh, wow.
males can, it's all on an individual basis. You get males that are nice and males that are mean. I've
Mm.
seen males beat the shit out of their females. I'm not gonna look, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've seen Garmani get rough with the girls. The males are big and they're gnarly and they're forceful and they'll kind of beat the shit out of the females and they breed with them.
Mm.
They grab them and hold them and restrain them and it can be a little gnarly. So that's just something, and not every time. I know people that have pairs that live together forever nicely, but Garmani can definitely be mean with courtship. But I don't see that in the Jamaican twig anoles. Obviously, the size difference is not even close in those. The Jamaican
Mm.
twig anoles are nice. They live well in pairs, although I have seen problems with females. It's so weird with keeping trios of the small anoles. I tend to see a lot of inter-female conflict. But with the giant anoles, really, I don't see really not much inter-female conflict as long as the females are well matched. So
Mm.
that's them. And then Chameleolis, uh, Porcus, and Red Throats, you can't even keep them together, really, in my experience. I mean, I know people that do. There's always outliers. My animals get natural everything, and they're mean in the breeding season. Those males will beat the crap out of the females, and they'll breed them and breed them and breed them and breed them until they get exhausted and kind of like. So I keep
Shit.
I call it my sorority because I keep like 3 or 4 female porcus together in one cage. They're
I was
fine.
just gonna ask you. Okay, so you do. And then you'll introduce one male in there for X amount of time, and then pull him out.
I just take the females out and put them with the males because I have multiple
Okay.
males. So I'm like, okay, you bred with that
Okay.
male, you bred with this male, you bred with that male. So I know that I'm getting,
Interesting.
at least some bloodline diversity from the
Yeah.
babies.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the Guamahaya does fine. My Guamahaya pair lives together just fine, but they're freaking huge. They're huge. The male porcus has a bit of size in the female, but the Guamahaya female is bigger than the male. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't keep, and I don't even recommend keeping Barbatus together personally,
Cool.
and if your animals are fit, especially like so. This is I was saying I was talking to my friend about this, and with the I've seen the night anoles hanging out together in the wild in pairs. They really do. They're quite social. Then a male will have a hierarchy or not a harem of females, and I've literally seen them basking together, hanging out together in the wild. The night anoles, they're quite social. Cameliolis and also night anoles move a lot, have a pretty big home range for a lizard that's arboreal. The Cameliolis literally actually will sit in one place for 5 days and not move. So when you have an
Huh.
animal that kind of is not really moving so much, is a lot more dormant, a lot more slow moving, when that animal sees a female, that's the time,
Mm.
that's the time.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
outlook on why the Cameliolas can be such aggressive breeders is because they're not having
We got to take
as
advantage of it.
they got to take advantage of it when they see the girls because they're not active, they're not moving as much. They're not seeing the girls every day. So
Great
that's
observations, man. Awesome
yeah,
observations.
yeah, yeah. No, I spent a lot of time outside. So yeah,
That's
Jamaican two
great. I
little.
think that's a huge part of keeping animals successfully in captivity is studying them in nature, man. You have to see them, their natural behaviors. The whole they're in captivity thing just doesn't work for me. I mean, we are replicating their natural environment, right? Like if you want a healthy, thriving animal, you keep them as close to nature as possible. I say it all the time. John Smith down the street is not our proxy. Nature is our proxy, right? So yes, they're in captivity, and yes, you have to do things different, but everything you do should be compared to nature, not the next man. Like
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just
Yeah, it's learn from nature and learn from observing your own animals.
yes.
Don't.
When you're pairing these, John, are you looking for any particular characteristics or traits or anything when you're pairing up certain animals, or are you just looking with the Knowles for the healthiest specimen you have?
Well, so you can't, in my experience, and I've produced a lot of giant anoles,
Hmm.
you can't really line breed a species that's extremely highly variable. I mean, like,
Okay.
and that was kind of like a misnomer, extremely highly, but giant anoles are highly, highly variable. Like, you can have a spotted male and a spotted female of Barracoa and produce patternless offspring. So
Interesting.
I don't breed for any kind of traits with them.
Okay.
I have pairs that live together and produce beautiful offspring and they consistently produce every year. And
Nice.
that's just, I leave those pairs together. I don't switch up anybody because when you switch them up, that's when you start to have conflict.
Yeah.
When they're
Mhm.
familiar with each other, you don't have conflict. Like if you have a
Mhm.
pair and you add a second female, a
Yeah.
long-term pair, the females will fight. uh, so no, I don't. But I do have certain animals that throw certain characteristics. Like I have one
Okay.
big green small wood eye, and he has bright green babies, and I have another small wood eye who's more of like a kind of like bluish green, and he throws more
Mhm.
bluish babies. So like to an extent,
Nice.
but I don't breed for it. I just have different blood.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
So what's the gestation period for the females, and then what's your incubation method for them?
Okay. Well, I can answer that whole question if you want me to.
Go
Hmm.
ahead.
Please.
That's what you're here for.
So in the breeding season, which is spring through the summer. Actually, my breeding season literally just ended. I collected the last eggs like 2 weeks ago. I haven't got any more, so it's looking like as soon as the
Nice.
temperatures start to drop like into the low 70s, then like so they in the hot times and in the breeding season they'll lay one egg a week, and they'll lay one egg a week from March until November. So,
Yeah.
it's and they do, and it's not like they breed and then they lay an egg. Like they can breed one time and lay eggs for many, many weeks. They do
So they retain
sperm
sperm.
retention. Yeah, they do that.
Okay.
Especially
Cool.
Cameliolis does that on the subject of them not having so many opportunities to breed in the wild. They do that especially strong.
Makes
The
sense.
Anoles don't do it as strongly. In my observations, I could be wrong. But so they lay one egg a week. So I copied Ron St. Pierre a little bit with his housing system. So he used sink bases. Let me go get a charger really quick. My phone's about to die. Hold
Oh,
Okay.
on, 2 seconds.
Man.
it's a good guess. This kid is smart, man. He's smart.
Oh, for sure. I didn't think they would produce like that, like the smaller Knolls. I thought they would take a little bit more longer time, but
Something's
that's
got to
cool as
keep them
hell. I like
similar. They
that.
got to be
Yeah.
classified as a Knowles for some reason. I
Yeah.
imagine
Well, I
its
just think,
behaviors.
yeah, I just thought it was like, the smaller Knolls, they need to produce more just because they're so small. Um, and I mean, those giants they're giants. They eat those smaller Knolls, so I figured the small ones
Mm.
have to produce more. But that's cool that no matter what kind of Knoll it is, you're getting an egg a week.
Yeah, they're still mad productive. Okay, so I'll get back to it. So I copied Ron St. Pierre a little bit. My basis. So what I do is I take outdoor storage bins made by Suncast. They're the 22-gallon outdoor storage bin, and I tape that onto a large size Repti Breeze cage. And then I take a potted plant, I use mass canes, Dracaena fragrans. That's the main
I
plant that I
don't know
use
what
for
that
the
is.
adults. A mass cane, if you want to display it so everyone can see. I use a mass cane plant. It's a Dracaena,
Hmm.
native to Africa, and a really cool plant. Very hardy, very drought resilient plant. Obviously, they don't get droughts, but here, but and I put it's in a 3 gallon pot. I put the 3 gallon pot in the base, and I put a bunch of branches in the tank. And they have all they do is they just go down. They'll lay their eggs in the 3 gallon pot, and that way it's super easy for me to recover the eggs out of the pot because it's just a little 3 gallon pot. So I can go in,
No.
dig up the eggs. They tend to nest in the same spot for one. Yeah, if you go and look at some of my pictures, you can see the leaves in the back, like that picture I just posted of the Ludio Galerius. Or actually,
Mhm.
if you scroll down on my page a little bit, scroll down, I can show you.
I'm always looking for new plants. I love plants. They're like my second passion.
It's me too. Just keep scrolling. You go for it's for way further down. I have a picture of
Wow.
of a full setups. If you
I
scroll
was on
way,
there earlier, dude, and I was like, let me stop liking pictures before this kid hates me. I could have went through and liked every freaking one on there.
Oh shit.
keep
No,
going, keep
seriously, because I get carried away. I'm like, boom, 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 boom. Like, oh my God. Next thing you know, you got 500 likes. You're like, who the fuck is this guy?
hold on, I haven't seen it yet. Oh, whoops, whoops.
Oh, what is that, dude?
Keep scrolling. Go up a little. Go. I think go up a little bit. Go
So
up.
you keeping your offspring together, or were those females? Are you keeping babies together?
We can look together, but I'll talk to you about it too. So I must have missed it. Keep. There's a picture here where I have all my full setups. I keep going.
What's that yellow guy?
It's an albino.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, okay, right
Wow.
there, right there, right there. Stop. Go down. Go down. Scroll down one. Scroll down one. No, no,
I
no.
hate
Scroll
that.
down one. Scroll down one. No, to the left, like right there, on the left. You see the picture with all the plants. There's the pink dewlap, and then one above the pink. Yeah, there you go. So that's if you click on that photo.
Okay.
So that's a mass cane. They're like in my. I use them for the adults because they provide like I
I
said, the
think I know
crown
what that
giants,
is.
they walk on leaf surfaces, so they provide leaf surfaces for them to walk on, but they also provide cover, and they also have very thick
Nice.
stems, and the Anoles will use the stems too as a perch. And I just
Nice.
place one plant in a 3 gallon in the tank. The plant will grow into the tank, like in that picture you see. It looks really beautiful. They grow really long
Yep.
leaves. They grow around the foliage, and they lay in the soil of the pot. It's super easy to recover it. I recover the eggs. I use Hatchite. I know it's kind of like bougie, and I could just use perlite, but I've just found that Hatchite is the best substrate for them. And this is a
Jay
big
I
uses
use
it
it
too.
too.
no,
I use it too.
it's
Yeah.
good shit. It's
Yeah.
good shit. It's good shit.
Yeah.
And I found really, and this is a big point that I want to make for anyone watching that is interested in eventually breeding anoles. They incubate dry,
Mm-mm.
I
or
did
not.
not know that either.
It doesn't have to be like not bone dry. You have to, but there shouldn't be any water accumulated in the bottom of the hatch, right? Like they need,
Ah,
like if you get hatch right and you get it out of the bag, you don't even want to damp. Like if it's a new bag and you open it, you don't even dampen hatch right. You just put the egg straight into it. And if
Yeah,
you,
huh.
that's what I do. Yeah.
yeah, and then you can leave it for like two, the whole season, and you don't have to re-wet it until the very end. Like they incubate
Right.
very
Yeah.
dry, and if you incubate them too wet, you'll notice they'll incubate, they'll go all the way to full size, the eggs will swell up, get really big, and then the babies just are fully developed in the egg and dead. I learned that the
Mm.
hard way, and that's for anything Cuban
Yeah.
false chameleons, uh, pretty much any anole, to be honest. Well, the smaller anoles are you can get away with a little bit more, but uh, yeah, giant
This
anoles
thing
incubate.
almost looks like a freaking like a tree monitor. It almost has a blue tree monitor pattern, man. That thing is
That's
cool.
I have way better pictures of him on there. If you look, that's my favorite. It's Anoles
What
Small.
beautiful animals, man. Yes.
He's
Yes.
a fucking stud, dude. Yeah, and then
Yes.
incubation time you asked. So they should a healthy incubation time for them is between 55 and 60 days. And some,
Damn, that's
some
quick.
some anoles, the smaller species will incubate 45 to 55. Giant anoles I've noticed, and I incubate at exactly my room fluctuates between 70 in the hot time. I incubate them in a storage unit. Like my house has a storage unit. I incubate them in a
Okay.
storage unit.
Nice.
The temperature ranges from like 77 to 81, and they incubate in 60 days flat. 60 days pretty much flat. Should be 60 days.
Just
Nice.
about every species then, anoles in general.
Every species that I keep.
Okay.
The smaller ones may go a little faster, but should be 60 days. And obviously, like anything else, the more cool you keep them, the longer they're going to incubate. But I've tried it, and I noticed, it doesn't really make a difference on the size they hatch or the sex ratios or anything.
Awesome. Keep scrolling, Jay. Tell us about some of these things, man. Again, like I said, from a kid keeping green anoles to what I see in the hobby today, like I'm,
Click on that. Go down.
it's like, wow.
I'm a Cuban false chameleon. No, go to the right there. Go down. Click on the one in the middle, the
The
Cuban
one with the
fossil,
red.
the one with the yellow dewlap. Yeah, that's
That one?
Guamo. That's Guamahaya. That's Guamahaya. They're really cool. They don't. It's hard, if you're not well versed in anoles, it's hard to like look at that and be like, is that not just a Cuban false chameleon? But
Yeah.
in person, they're very different. And now, if you go to the left, go to that one post to the left with the red dewlap, the
Yeah,
red
that's what I
dewlap.
was gonna ask. What's the one with the red dewlap? That bad boy.
It's Anoles
He's
africanus.
cool.
Anoles
That's
africanus.
cool.
It's local endemic in some places in eastern Cuba. The holotype was found. Well, there was recently a study that kind of like described. It didn't describe them, but it was like the study discovered them as a species. They described them in this one mountain in eastern Cuba called Gran Piedra, a place I've been, really cool place. And they found them there, and they're in a few localities in eastern Cuba, mostly in the mountains. I know they're at some places that are not so montane, but uh, and they're really
Hmm.
cool. And the Cuban false chameleons, they'll take it cold, man. I mean, that thing will take it in the 40s, and the Guamahaya will take it in the 40s, no problem.
I heard they were pretty bulletproof animals.
That's a strong statement.
Yeah,
They Yeah, they're very good with temperature, and if you keep them the right way, they're bulletproof. But they are very much more prone to dehydration than the green ones are.
really.
Ah,
Yes,
okay. So,
100%.
So are you
what
misting
about
these things? Do you have misting setups? Are you spraying them? What do you do?
And spray everything.
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, because hand spraying, as much as it like might be inconvenient, then
I do it
you
myself.
put the right amount of water in every
Yeah.
cage. My cages can't flood, but you're putting the right amount of water in every cage. My animals will come and drink right out of the spray nozzle, so you're making sure they get the right amount. That everyone drinks, and it's an excuse to look at every single cage every day, even though I do that anyway.
Absolutely. I
Even though I
tell
do
people all the time.
that anyways,
You
but
know, it's definitely not money. I promise you, it is not money that I don't have Miss King set up on all these 200 enclosures. I promise you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I want to
enjoy
see what's going on.
spraying, hand spraying. Every enclosure is a little different. I'm checking the animals while I'm doing it. I mean, there's just so much that goes into hand spraying. It's hardly
Yeah.
a task, a challenge, or a burden or an inconvenience for me. It's absolutely.
I will just say this because it's a joke. I have a Miss King, and it's not even seven.
There you go.
Yeah,
So
So,
I don't know if you know. Have you ever seen the David Attenborough show, Life in Color? They did a miniseries.
yeah, I have.
So you saw how they were showing the dewlaps on the Anoles. I think that's so amazing. When you look at these things, it's like, that's what we see, but what are they seeing? You know?
It's totally worth mentioning. When
Yeah,
you see in an old dewlap, what you see is not what they see. I mean, they see
not at all.
because they can see further they can see into like they can see different wavelengths of light than what we can see.
I wish everybody would watch that documentary. I ask just about every one of our guests because nobody understands. Like even animals are like, oh well, I don't use UVB or this or that. I'm like, but UV has so much more importance with certain species of reptiles than just you know for vitamin supplementation and whatnot. Like certain species. I mean, these UV lights are part of their life. Like this is what they need to communicate, to thrive, to see. To There's just so much more
a million
than
percent.
than we get.
And people always will message me and they'll be like, "Oh, like why are your animals so colorful? Like my animal is blue, my animal is dull. Like why are your animals so colorful?" And the truth is, it's because I really, with my animals that are in the patio, I find lighting to be very important. And my animals outside, they live outside. When they can see their natural color range, like I think when you keep an animal in too low light or like skewed light, they even won't they like their body won't be the right color because their brain sees a certain light, they see a certain light,
I
and they
agree.
think they're like, okay, like this is the color I should be. But my animals all look like they're from the wild. Like a giant and all other than Equestrius potior and like Luteogularis should really be bright green. Like any small wood eye should be bright green. Like if you're seeing blue, you see a lot of blue small wood eye in Europe, and they're healthy and everything. It's no husbandry issue or anything, but those animals should all be green. They should all be green.
yeah.
Seeing blue crown giants, it's something with the lighting makes them turn blue. Don't know what, but
Hmm.
It
So, what
definitely
about
works.
for
Whatever
your
you're doing,
wintertime?
brothers.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you have an animal that
So, for
like
your wintertime.
lives its life off of visual cues, light is like
Hmm.
so important for them. So
Yeah.
Yes.
important.
So, for the wintertime, right? Because, like I said, you keep them outside. Uh, like, is there any time that you're like, you know what, I might have to bring these inside, or you just keep them out all the time?
Well, it
24/7?
depends who it is. So anyone that, I feel like is vulnerable, anyone who's old, anyone who's
Okay. Yeah.
young, they'll come inside. I've never really had. I had one hatchling that it got kind of like in the 50s one day, and this hatchling like got a neuro issue and didn't make it. That was the one time I ever had something die from the cold. Other than
Oh
that,
wow.
cold is pretty. It's pretty all right for them. It's also on a per species basis. You gotta decide who comes in,
Yeah.
like that in that picture, that one with the two on the branch. Anoles luteogularis, they come from the far western parts of Cuba, and they can
Okay.
like even like all the way out in the, it's a long name, but there's a peninsula in the very west part of Cuba, and it can get freaking cold there, like as cold as it gets in South Florida, easy. So they stay outside all year. The Cameliolis stays outside all year, but like my old man Baracoa, and any of my old ones or anyone that I feel like needs to come in comes in
Okay.
when it gets
Mm.
like into the 50s, pretty much.
I love the different species of wood that you keep in there, man. I think the bark texture and everything is super important too. Like everybody keeps everything on cork. There's probably like half the animals we keep in captivity that do not come from places where there's cork trees. Like
Yeah.
it's very, I think it's super cool.
Also, this is another thing I wanted to mention about using the bark. So when you use smooth bark and rough bark
Mm.
and semi-rigid bark in an enclosure, you're encouraging the animals, especially animals like an anole or a gecko where they have toe pads and nails. You're encouraging them to use one or the other, not just use like
Oh yeah.
cork bark. They're not using their toe pads; they're using their nails. When you have multiple kinds of wood, you're pretty much making it that they have reasons to strengthen their nails, but also to strengthen their toe pads. Does that make sense?
100%
Oh
Because
yeah.
agree.
like
Absolutely.
use a palm, I use some palm trunks, like thin, like like baby, like young royal palm trunks or anything that's very
Hmm.
smooth. They use their toe
Yeah.
pads to walk on that. Or they use their toe pads to walk on the leaf surfaces, but on the oak bark, they use their nails. And then that really strengthens their nails. And a big sign of health in giant anoles is like how strong are your nails? That's something I
Okay.
Sure.
experienced.
It is in humans.
How
Sure.
strong your nails.
Humans, even, horses, their hooves, everything. I mean, a keratin and, is
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
if an anole can't climb, there's something wrong.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What's that
Definitely.
thing eating there? A lizard? I can't really see on my phone. Well,
Lizard, brown anole.
Yeah. Yep.
so those are ones you're catching. Are you setting up little traps for them? How are you catching them? Are you just out there having a blast catching them by hand?
Yeah, I've done it my whole life, so I'm pretty nasty. And
Hell yeah!
I use a noose and I
There you go.
catch them, and I'll go out at night and collect them because I also keep scarlet king snakes, and I have like small Bahamian boas, small Puerto Rican boas that are eating anoles.
Nice,
So it works
nice.
for me.
Nice.
My grandparents raised me. My grandparents had a house down in Clearwater, so my whole life we'd go down there for like 3 months out of the year when I was a kid, and that's all I ever did was go down to Florida and catch frickin' anoles and baby alligators, believe it or not, and king snakes or corn snakes under all the water pump things. I'd pull them. I'd catch anything that would crawl. I'd go down there and catch, man. And hands down, without a doubt, catching anoles was I'll never forget it.
It's a time. I love catching animals. That's why, bro, when I go to Cuba, man, or Jamaica, I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. How often are you
Did you go to
going
school?
to
Did
those
you go to?
places?
I mean, you sound like an educated kid. Did you go to college?
yeah, I graduated from University of Miami last year.
What'd you study?
I was a double major in marine science, and so essentially like,
Oh nice.
Awesome.
yeah, and
Awesome.
I've been involved with some herp research. I've done field work with a few grad students, and I'm published on a paper and a few other things. So I'm relatively
That's
familiar with
awesome.
the science side of everything. I try to do
Not for
some,
nothing, but as a kid, my idols were Indiana Jones and Jacques Cousteau.
yeah,
So
makes sense.
Nice.
that's
So
freaking cool, dude. So I was
it's
gonna
funny.
say, I mean, that's something amazing. You just travel.
Yeah.
I mean, for school, going and catching animals. I mean, you just that'd be a dream come true, dude. Like,
Stuff wasn't for school though. Cuba and Jamaica, that's like my personal travel.
did you
Yeah.
go out there for vacation, or were you out there for the animals?
No, well, Cuba, I go with it. So you can't Cuba. There's some travel restrictions in Cuba, so you can't travel there for tourism. I go with a non for
Oh
profit.
man,
I go with a non for profit that
Oh, okay.
bring binoculars to like less fortunate areas to like promote ecotourism. Like they bring binoculars to like promote bird watching tours. So
Really?
That's
so that's it's called
nice.
Optics for the Tropics. Awesome group. That's who I go to.
Wow.
Go to Cuba with. Jamaica, obviously, you can just go. I
Hmm.
actually spent. I did spend 3 months in the Galapagos for school, but I don't talk about that much because there's not a lot of anoles there. But I've seen like a shit ton of marine iguanas and land iguanas and lava lizards and Galapagos tortoises and stuff.
Finches.
Nice.
Yeah, a lot of fishes and penguins and bluefin boobies and seals and lots of sea turtles. So even saw
Hmm.
some of those Galapagos racers. That was cool. But
Have
yeah,
you read any of Darwin's books? Have
uh,
you actually read any of his literature?
yeah, I had not like full books, but like there's a few. So I have the oh gosh, oh my gosh, I'm blanking.
Theory of
what is
Evolution.
Theory of Evolution?
Theory of
There,
Evolution.
I have the paper copy of it, and there's a few excerpts in really interesting. It's kind of meta. Like, damn, you guys were like stowing these tortoises away in the beagle and eating them. That's fucked up.
Man, MS Beagle, boy. People don't. I've read a few of his books, man. I've dabbled in his writings.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, man. Yeah, they sure did.
yeah. And I read.
Yeah.
See, I don't. I'm bad at reading books. I've read a few. I've read books.
Hmm.
I read a lot of scientific literature. That's mostly what I do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
If you want to improve your keeping, scientific
Hmm.
literature is the place to go. Obviously, there's
Absolutely.
Definitely.
big care books, but if you read studies about things in the wild, it can definitely help a lot.
Hmm.
Definitely has helped me a lot.
Oh yeah, definitely. I,
Awesome.
I use
Going there, man. You got
AFA.edu
boots on
all
the
the time.
ground, man. That's cool. Crap. That's awesome, dude. I envy you, man. That's
I appreciate it. That's very nice. Appreciate it.
very cool.
Thank you.
So is there any like any kind of health concerns but for these about these anoles that people should know about before they actually even start trying to get into them?
Yeah, there's a few things that I've dealt with. Uh, so fatty liver is definitely a thing for them.
Okay.
And
Really.
yeah, 100%. That can come from really high.
Rodents.
Well, yeah, obviously that's like, but not just that. So any like any like if you feed something to any of those, there's like certain formulated reptile diets that are very high in nutrients. Overfeeding those, like grub pie or like something like that, that can
Mm.
cause fatty
Okay.
liver. A lot of superworms, a lot of wax worms can cause fatty liver. Mostly though with adults. Like if you're feeding a baby anole, you could feed that thing as much as you want. It's just going to grow long, not fat. But yeah, fatty liver definitely a thing for them. This is a really big one. So I don't know if you guys keep you. Well, I know you guys keep new Cal geckos. So you guys know about zigzag tails?
Hmm.
Never
Zigzag tails.
experienced it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
So pretty much, if an anole is or a lizard is, well, this is what I think. When they're lacking in calcium, they'll start to uh, kind of use less calcium in the bones in their tail to kind of
Mm.
repurpose it for the actually important parts of their body, and their tails will get all like crooked and zigzag, and that totally happens in anoles, and I've had it happen multiple times. Even animals where they were kept the same as their cage mates, everything was fine, and just one random animal did it. But in my experience with new cow geckos, that's not reversible. In anoles, interestingly enough, even though it looks
Very
it's
cool.
like it's a bone malformation, it's totally reversible if you give them enough calcium and enough nutrients. That zigzag tail thing will go away. But if you continue to do it, it'll just
Awesome.
get to the point where it won't go away. Uh, what else have I dealt with in anoles? Um, you know, uh, they can if they have weak bones, they're prone to breaks. I've gotten animals that have just had came out of rough situations and they have really brittle bones, but that's just like anything else.
Mm.
I'm just thinking if there's anything else.
The eye thing you were talking about with the eyes and the lighting.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, obviously, too little lighting. It's not like a sickness, but you might not get the colors you desire.
No,
Uh,
too high light. Remember you were saying where it scarred their retinas or something like
yeah,
that?
yeah. Photokeratoconjunctivitis.
There you
That's
go.
totally a thing for them, and for any diurnal lizard. Um,
Okay.
Geez, I have to think if there's anything else. Photokeratoconjunctivitis. But again, another reversible condition.
Mm.
Oh, so I've seen in Cameliolis where they lack. I never figured out what nutrient it was because it wasn't in my care. But some of the animals that I have, they were lacking in some nutrient and they were having problems with their eyes, where they're like the edges of their eyes inside of their like their eye was getting all messed up and they weren't showing it right. They get it looks like an eye infection, but it's the result of something, some nutrient deficiency. I have one
Oh,
female.
interesting.
I have a male glum eye. I have a female red throat who are blind in one eye from that. Not from
Oh
me
shit.
though. They came into my care like
Mm,
that. And face rubbing. That's another thing. I mean, it's not
okay.
really a sickness, but you just got to know your animals and watch them. And if you notice that
Mm.
they don't look happy, change something. So they are prone to
Are you
face
doing
rubbing.
anything extra with supplementation? Is just thinking now, if they lay so many eggs and the zigzag tail and whatnot, do you find any connection between the females laying eggs and calcium depletion, or do you
No, their eggs are not. Camelliolus,
super
yeah.
calcium?
Camelliolus
Okay,
eggs are much more calcified than
okay,
the green giants or the Jamaican giant. So Camelliolus needs a shit ton of calcium.
okay.
And that's I do in the summer when the girls are laying eggs, feed them snails. The snails
Okay.
have not only they have a lot of calcium, but I think there's other things in snails that we really lack in conventional
Mm,
feeders, like collagen, for example. I think is a
mm,
big thing for
mm,
not just for Camelliolus, but for anything that's eating snails in the wild. So that's something I supplement in the Camelliolus diet in the summer when they're laying eggs. They do perfectly fine off of insects, like commercial insects. Uh, I used to use Repashy Calcium Plus, but recently I've been not liking D3 supplements, and
okay.
I switched over to Arcadia Earth Prep A, and so I use that, and I just use the regular Repcal without vitamin D3. You can use it on every feeding. I don't because I gut load my bugs. I gut load them with
Mhm.
the Missouri Better Bug, but I mix Missouri Better Bug with a little bit of Zoomed crested gecko diet and bee pollen and the cricket diet. That way, instead of just gut loading the insects, it maintains the insects, but they're still eating something that's really good for them. And I use carrots and
Nice.
dandelion greens and stuff. I think gut loading is huge, and I already mentioned him. I
Absolutely.
have a really good and extremely smart, very awesome keeper friend from Cuba who basically said to me, he's like, you know, gut loading, that's the thing. That's the thing to do.
Mm.
Gut loading is the big one. I think if you gut load your insects the right way, you don't even really need to dust them.
Yeah.
I do the same thing, dude. I raise my own feeders for that reason. I just don't trust what other people do, so I've just made it a point to raise my own feeders, and I literally control everything that goes in them, ultimately controlling what goes into my animals, man. I get it's a hassle, right? I don't suggest nor do I expect everyone to go through the crap I go through raising all these damn bugs, but it helps me sleep at night, you know?
I, 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 I love raising insects. I know it sounds weird, but I've been breeding roaches for like so many generations, and
Oh, dude, I breed like six, seven different species of roaches, man. Like
recently recently I've been adding isopods to my animals' diet because they're a super good source of calcium because
yeah.
their exoskeletons are literally calcium.
Hmm.
How could you get any better? I use dairy cows, big dairy cows. Most of my adults really like them. Some of them don't. But I try to vary their diet as much as possible. And for the Jamaican twin anole, we don't really talk about them a lot, but they're one that they're probably out of all the anoles I keep, they're probably the one that is the most prone to like calcium crash, egg binding, just health issues overall. Because it just seems like twig anoles in general, this Jamaican twig anole especially, like Garma, the Jamaican giant, is a freaking brute. Those things are invincible. But the trigonals are sensitive. You make one misstep with them, and they're not going to do well. So I supplement
Shit.
them. I supplement them a lot. I gut load their feeders, and I give them varied diet, like a lot of a lot of variability in their diet. I give them high DI fruit flies. They're one of the anoles that really like small prey. Even the adults will hunt little tiny things. I give them IDI fruit flies. I give them crickets. I give them superworms. I breed those buffalo worms. Those are a really good small anole feeder. Buffalo worms
Hmm.
and buffalo beetles.
Hmm.
I give them like mini superworms. I give them other anoles. I give them gecko diet. I give them. I'm gonna start giving it. I have a friend who gives them mango, and they seem to like it, like mango sap. So I'm gonna give them that because those are ones that you really got to pay attention to a lot with the supplementing because they crash
Hmm.
and burn really easy. And then
How would you get mango sap? Just, I guess, like cut the outside of a.
not even sap, but just like slightly squeezed mango. You know what I'm saying? Like you just take a mango.
Okay, just like
like
Just
pulp
a
it.
liquid from the.
Not
Yeah,
even
yeah,
like
yeah.
liquid,
You
like
get some fresh mango down there.
just take a mango and kind of just like
Slice it and then.
rip it up a little bit, make it like all pulpy,
Yeah.
and just put it in the cage. Yeah, you can get
Okay.
fresh mango here. No, 100%. And I also Ron St. Pierre already said this, but like he said it on, I don't know if it was a podcast or a post, but that my anoles do love Suriname cherry bushes, like Suriname cherries. They're like these little red fruits that grow out of a bush, and my animals love those things. And those are really, really, really good, like really beneficial
Are
for your.
I don't think I know what
those
they
cherries?
are,
Those
but I'm gonna
are.
look.
Yeah. Where do you get them from?
You just collect them, they grow here.
Okay, you got them local.
Yeah, local.
Okay.
They're actually pretty good.
Nice.
They're a little bitter, but they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Nice.
And
Let me
figs.
check it
That's
out.
cool.
I love figs.
I'm a dumb, right? Everything I keep loves figs too. I give them to my lychees. I get once in a while, bust open a fig and just give them the whole damn thing.
I love figs, so I get it. Oh,
Well,
those are good.
I'm Italian, bro. Listen, we grow them everywhere. We grow figs like we grow rose bushes.
Yeah, no, figs are
So
great.
let me. Is there any? Because we're coming close to the end. I don't want to hold you too much
You're
longer. I
good.
know you're.
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any good communities for like? Well, actually, how is the no community?
I would say it's actually really good. We're a relatively small community. I feel like the overall goal of our community is to help each other out. We kind of we all we communicate and we share information rather than being gatekeepers and being
Oh,
like, oh, I do this, I'm
awesome.
supposed to do it, I'm the only one that does it. We just most of the whole community really just wants to see everybody succeed, and I totally abide by that 100%. You know, anyone that asks me a question, you don't have to be my customer if you want information from me. Anyone that messages me and is like, hey, I have this or I want to get this, like, what should I do? I answer anybody's question. And it's kind of the same way within
Very
the
cool.
animal community. We're a small, tight knit community, but we do, we're a good group. And the best, like, if you want to get involved in the animal community, the best group is the Anoles group on Facebook. That's like the main group. I used to use Anoles breeders and enthusiasts, but that group kind of died off. So I pretty much post exclusively in the Anolis group. Uh, and that's where you can find a lot of I don't know if you like say like the big players, it's where everyone is
Hmm.
the most active. Yeah, no, it's a good community. I definitely like being a part of the animal community more than I like being part of other communities because I have other stuff too.
Oh yeah.
Well, you got. I mean, it's a given, dude. If you look at the crested guy or the new cow world as a whole, if you were to ask me what the downfall is or the demise of the new cow world will be, it's the gatekeeping and the bashing. When you look at all these little budding, thriving, up and coming communities that are around some of these cool species like anoles and tokays and all these other things, these people are so cool with each other. Like everyone's like a friend. Everyone knows each other. Everyone's willing to help the next one win. You look at crested geckos and they're like, well, I don't know you. We don't need any more, and we're not doing. It's like who are you people? Like you're so rude and like obnoxious. Like you could be talking to some 12-year-old kid that just wants to learn something. Like damn, be nice to people. Christ.
Yeah, I don't think that what you were just saying, like that's to me that's not what herpetoculture is.
No, it's not.
It's about to
It's
me.
not.
I just want to share my love for these animals with everybody, and give everybody as good of
Yes.
information as I could possibly give.
Yes.
It's see everybody win. It's not a competition to me.
That passion breeds passion. Like, and I say it all the time, I sound like a broken record, but we should want the reptile hobby to be like the cat and dog hobby, right? Like, we should all want it to be as big as possible. We should want reptiles in homes, no particular species, but we should want reptiles to be as acceptable as cats and dogs. Like, why this bickering and fighting and gatekeeping? None of that helps, the greater cause. Like, it doesn't. Like,
Completely agree. Completely
there's
agree.
no reason for it.
Yeah,
Like you said, not being a customer. Hey, you don't gotta be my customer. If I have information that's gonna help you win, I'd be honored to give it to you.
yeah,
I'd be honored to give it to you. I mean, that's why we started this podcast. We were tired of people gatekeeping. We wanted to start getting these amazing people with great information. We wanted to start making it more accessible. Like there's people out there that are willing to share this information. Just ask, just again, I to go back to the new cow world. Some people, like I've experienced, like in a group, won't ask me a question in a group, but they'll send me a message, which is fine. But they won't ask the question in the group because they don't want to get picked on. Like that's a real thing. Like you got to worried about what someone's gonna say to you.
It's
Like
pretty.
that's terrible, man. That's terrible, man. It's terrible,
And also,
terrible.
just another side note, like you know, being a reptile breeder, it's like it's 20% can you breed the animals, and then it's the other 80% is can you deal with the social aspect
Mm,
of being a
Right.
reptile breeder. And my
yeah,
strong opinion on that is you will have better success marketing and selling your animals by just being a kind person
very
and
true. Fact.
understanding and willing to share person, even if it doesn't mean you're going to get a dollar from it.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
that's my opinion. That's my approach.
One of my go-to gecko guys, I'm a like a super loyal person. Once I find somebody that does good business and is like a good person, like I vow to give them all the money I spend. Not that it's right or I should explore other people, but that's
That's
just how
exactly,
I operate.
and that's I think that's how
And
you just never screw
he's
you just
gotten
never screw anybody.
thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars from me
Yeah.
just for answering questions before I ever kept these species. I'd ask a question
Yeah.
and he'd volunteer to tell me, like, listen, you could do it this way, you could do it this way. Some people do it this way, but listen, if I were you, what I suggest is you try this. Like he just like would go out of his way to be a and it's not even like you have to go far out of your way to be a good person. It's so much easier to be a good person than it is to put the energy into being a dickhead. Like it's just a fact, you know? And he would. And for that reason, he'll get just about every dollar I spend with animals. There's two of them, but ironically, they're friends, you know? So it's like just being a good person has, you know, and I'm a grown ass man that spends a lot of fucking money, man, you know? And you will get all of my money just for being a good person, you know?
Exactly, yeah. And I'm lucky. Like I have the same. I have a lot of really loyal customers, and I'm always willing
I
to
see why.
more
I see
information.
why.
And also, I'm lucky to I keep a niche that like not really anybody else does. So
Yeah.
it's a win for me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You
Well,
got
you
the
got a lot
market
of
right
things
now,
going
right?
for you, bud. You got a lot of things going for you. You're extremely intelligent, extremely bright. Your observations, your attention to detail are just you're very good at what you do, man. You fit the spot, man. If I were to buy a Knowles, honestly, like, and no offense, but I know there's some guys out there that have bigger names. I would come to you, man. I would come to you just for your personality and the way you handle yourself, the way you carry yourself. I would be totally confident and comfortable shopping with you, man.
Yeah, and just one more thing. Just gonna shout out my friend here. If you want to know and it's something I don't have, always go to Arman Herb. He is on the same wave as me, 100%.
We had him on. Yep.
That
We
is the
had
man.
him on. He's
That is the man. So if you ever
yep.
need anything else, for Anole wise, that's the guy.
He is. He's got some.
Right.
Yeah,
There's another one, man.
yeah.
Right. All right. So we coming up to end, and I'm about to ask my closing question. I always answer to everybody, uh, but what have been your biggest failures in this hobby, and then what have you learned from those?
Chief. Um,
You'd
oh, I didn't know everyone has a lot.
be
Um,
surprised how many don't admit it.
um, I have to think. It's just a lot. I have to like. I'm thinking because there's a few different things. Mm, this is just like a general. This is just like a general thing. Can you just repeat the second part of the question one time, please? You said, "What are your biggest failures in the hobby?"
Yeah.
And
And what have you learned from those failures?
um, well, one of my biggest failures in the hobby is, and this is like an interesting thing to say, is I feel like in the past I've gotten way too caught up in like just like putting so much into the animals that I like forget to take care of myself. So I
Mhm.
don't know if that's a failure, but it's kind of just like something that I've done and like had to deal with in the past is like, I have so many animals and I just like pour my soul into them and I
Yeah.
forget to like take care of myself and like nourish my personal relationships in my life. So I learned something from that. It's, love your animals, take the best possible care of your animals, but don't forget that you need to take care of yourself too, and
I love that.
don't let the hobby become too much of a job.
Oh yeah.
Because
I love that.
if you let the hobby turn into
Yeah.
like if you know it's a hobby and it's something you should always enjoy, and once you get to the point where you're stressing and not enjoying the hobby, that not enjoying the animals, like that's when you gotta like figure something out. So
Oh
I
yeah.
love that.
it's one.
I feel the same way about social media.
Yeah. And
Oh
then
yeah.
another one for me is you know be willing to listen and don't think you're the best all the time, and sit back and watch and listen, like learn from others. And this was like early on in my career. I just career early on in my keeping. I feel like I didn't take enough advice or listen well enough. And I guess the moral of what I'm saying is, and just shut up and listen sometimes. Just shut up and listen.
That's perfect. I like that.
One more is don't rush. You know, in the hobby,
Oh yeah. Take your time with this stuff. Yeah, yeah.
don't freak out if you can't get an animal that minute. Don't blow your whole bank account. Be fiscal and don't rush into things. Don't rush into projects. You know, keep just expect that things will work out, and don't try to rush breeding, and don't try to rush acquiring animals, because I don't know, it's just never just net rushing things just never works for me. Yeah,
I dig
Oh
it.
yeah.
that's my
All right. So my closing question for you is going to be: if someone were to keep reptiles for the first time, give me your pitch on anoles. Why should someone choose an anole over anything else that's offered in the hobby? What would your sales pitch be for anoles as pets?
you can get they're just everything that you could want. If you're looking for something that's going to be really awesome and like mostly display but very interactive terrarium, I mean they have everything that you could possibly want. If you like draw, say, like, if I'm going to compare them to things, you get the beautiful, amazing color of a green, like a tree monitor, or yeah, like you can get the color of a tree monitor without having a massive enclosure with like such an insane like setup for them. They don't get so big. You can have like the intelligence of any monitor or TID in a small package. You have something that they're manageable, but they're not mindless. I guess that if it was a phrase, they're manageable, but they're not mindless. They offer so much, but they can be so little.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. I think they're a great, they should be on everybody's radar, man. They're a species of lizard that people should pay attention to. Beautiful animals, intelligent animals, definitely manageable husbandry. You can keep them in a million different ways, whether it be outdoors or smaller species in a glass terrarium in an apartment, or a dorm room. There's a species of anole for just about every lifestyle. Awesome. So where can everybody find you? What's the best way for people to purchase from you, ask questions from you? If any of our followers wanted to find you, get in touch with you, tell us real quick.
Okay, so you can find me. My main social media is Crown Giant on Instagram. Like we were scrolling through, you saw my page. I also run the page Cameliolas. It's also like if you go on my Crown Giant page, you'll see that it's linked in the. I have a morph market. My morph market is Crown Giant Anoles, but it's AJ Reptiles, and the main name on the account is my girlfriend's name. But my name's also there. So if you look up AJ Reptiles, or you go look in Anoles on morph market, you'll see all my ads. You can message me there if you're interested in purchases. I also respond really quickly to Facebook Messenger. Yeah, Facebook Messenger, Instagram DM, Morph Market. Pretty much for me. On Facebook Messenger, I'm the same name I am here, Jon Asher. So
So your morph market is what? Your morph market is under
it's
Crown Giants?
it's Crown Giant is like the title, but it's like the account name
Okay.
is AJ Reptile.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I've already put
Check
it
them
in the
out,
show
guys.
notes, so
Check
you're
him
good to
out.
go on that.
Support him. Super great person, man. Super great human being.
I
Follow
still
him. Check his stuff out. If you're going to buy animals, keep him on your radar.
I still gotta, like Morph Market, you gotta send your ID to get your account name changed, and it's like my girlfriend made the account, so I just done that.
All right.
you'll
no worries.
you'll figure out which one is me. It's not that hard because I only have like 9 ads and they're all Anoles. So
Oh yeah, I've saw them already. I was like, oh god damn it, I need to
yeah,
get some.
yeah, for sure.
But
Yeah,
definitely, though, it was a pleasure having you on, man. Your passion
totally.
just bleeds
It
out,
was.
man. Oh my god, like,
It
dude,
was.
Thank you very
It
I
was a
much.
love
great
hearing
episode.
everything you were talking about for
Yeah,
real.
I enjoyed this a lot. This is my first time being on the
All right,
podcast, so it was kind of
Really.
I don't do a
talk
lot
about
of
some
this
quick stuff.
stuff. Yeah, no, this was totally a good experience and gave me a good outlook.
Something else you're good at, man.
Yeah,
Something
For
else
real,
you're good
yeah.
at. You did perfect, man.
if there's one thing I'm good at, it's talking about Knowles for a long time.
You should
And
start a
get that
channel,
YouTube page
man. You
up.
should start
Yeah,
a YouTube channel on a Knowles, man. Fill that void. You
yep.
could be like
Everyone,
Harmon's
everyone tells me
dude.
that.
You
Yeah.
got a
Because
gift, man.
I've
I'm
heard, I
telling you,
saw
man.
you on
I don't tell
Tees,
everybody. You have a
and I,
gift.
yeah.
You have a gift. You have a talent.
Like, I'm happy to do things like this, but I don't really like putting myself in front of the video. But that's just me.
I
Trust me,
respect
I
it.
feel the
I
same
hear you.
way by myself.
Maybe one day, though. Maybe one day I'll change my mind.
All right,
You
all
may
right.
get a lot of
So,
requests after people see this.
right,
If it's requested enough, I'll do it.
There you
all right.
go.
Everybody hear
Keep an
that,
open
right?
mind.
Maybe once. Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
guys, it's been excellent. Thank you for having me on. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
All
Thank
right.
you for your
Go ahead.
time. We appreciate it.
John, go ahead and stay on real quick after I stop this, and then we'll talk about some other stuff, okay? All right, everybody, have a great night. We'll talk to you next Sunday. Thanks.
Yo, creeping in the dark, life nocturnal, dark and dark, both paths arboreal to terrestrial. Sticky toes gripping forest students that explore. Listen close, Gecko podcast, that's knowledge galore. Reptile talk, host Anthony and Jason. Trade secrets flow, no time wasted. From tropics to town, it's sight raining. With every chat, reptile game changing. Escaping heat waves, tan under rays, desert sand echoes, sun blazing days. Little hustlers, camouflage and maze, catch 'em speaking wisdom, the wild on replay. Reptile talk, host Anthony and Jason. Trade secrets flow, no time wasted. From tropics to town, it's sight raining. With every chat, reptile game changing. Sculling through the leaves, shadows unseen. Master of the skies, chameleon dream. Lizard tails flip, script getting clean. Gecko exchange, true reptile fiends. Reptile talk, host Anthony and Jason. Trade secrets flow, no time wasted. From tropics to town, it's sight raining. With every chat, reptile game changing. Scuttling through the leaves, shadows unseen. Master of disguise.